Ladies and gentlemen, it is literally going to be the wild, wild west here tonight on Sportswire Radio because we are literally going to try to cover every single humanly thing possible because this is the time of year, ladies and gentlemen, where you've got NBA playoffs, you got NHL playoffs, we're kicking into gear, you got Major League Baseball, NFL draft. I mean, who knows what else? We're going to try to run the gauntlet here with you over the next few hours with three of my guys from the Sportswire radio team: Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Banter Show, Chris Pizzea of the Liftoff Jets and the Talking Rival Show, which I feel like I'm either playing a Liftoff Jets or a Talking Rival Show every other hour, but that's a good thing for us. And of course, my guy, Billy McInerney, also formerly of Elite Sports, and a lot to get into. So, guys, happy Friday, and not too much to talk about tonight here, right? Just not too much going on.
A little boring tonight, huh?
It's almost like a Christmas weekend, almost. With very little going on. Everybody, we're only goofing, obviously. A lot to get into here. I don't even know where to start, but I'm going to start with probably what's on the minds of most people, and that's the NFL draft. Because I know we'll get into the NBA. There's some news. NHL playoffs I want to get into with the Rangers. I do want to talk about that. I want to get into Major League Baseball. There's some news, obviously, with Trevor Bauer. I've got a couple of plugs. I got some baseball, Lindenhurst Golden Bears. I want to definitely plug. We're going to be working them in the show each and every week. I got a lot of stuff I want to get to, but I want to talk NFL draft here first, and I'm going to go with Billy McInerney because Billy's back with us here. And Billy, give me your observations so far on the draft, and obviously for our locals here and those that are watching this, give me your thoughts right now on the draft, how it's went for the Jets and your New York Football Giants.
Yeah, I think it's played out excellently for both New York teams. I mean, I really thought Jets were going to go with the edge rusher at 4. I didn't think they were going to take Gardner, but certainly I think he fills a big need for them. And then you get, at 10 you get Watson, the receiver, who I think is, I had him a little bit below Jameson Williams, but I get with the ACL, Williams is kind of a risk. They needed a receiver for sure. And then trading back up to take Johnson was also, I think, a great move. And it made so much sense to the Jets because they're at such a different stage of their rebuild with the Giants. The Jets, like, that clock is ticking. They drafted Zach Wilson. They need to put a team around him. They need to, they need to have results, So I definitely think that moving up for them to get, a guy they're really high on was the right move. The Giants, I think, staying pat at 5 and 7. I would have loved to trade down one of those picks, but honestly, I don't think anyone was really looking to move up. This is just a rough draft at the top of it. So, look, you take Thibodeau, was early on the top prospect, and really most of the reason he dropped mostly was, concerns about him off field and it's weird, not even like criminal concerns or shouldn't be getting in trouble, just concerns that he has interest outside of football, which always irritates me a little bit when I see those concerns. But whatever. And then, 7, you get Neal, who I think I had as the best tackle in the draft. So I love the draft. They won the draft for both those teams, definitely. I think both of them are doing what they need to do in this draft. The Giants is accruing as much talent as they can. The Jets filling very specific holes to try and put a good team around Zach Wilson.
No question about that. I got a couple of comments and a couple of people tuning in. Want to give a huge shout out to Aunt Laura because Aunt Laura has shared our video, and Aunt Laura, the brute force, may or may not be with us. I don't know if you know, but he's hopefully hoping to have his voice still with us here within the next, I guess, half hour. So something tells me he'll be here, even though he said he wouldn't. But I know Brad, and I know he'll want the chance to speak. And Anthony J. Finkel is obviously tuned in. My dear friend Daniel Slavin from obviously beautiful Florida, he's tuned in. Want to give him a shout out. He's a huge Jets fan. And Anthony Finkel, I mean, when did Middle Village become Murderville? I mean, when I think of Murderville and murders, I don't quite think of Middle Village, Queens. So, I mean, what is going on with the world? That's a different conversation for a different show. And Anthony Finkel also has in here 2022 draft may go down as one of the best Jets draft classes ever. 3 first-round players at the top of their position at every pick. Also, Coach Sala and Joe Douglas got tons of chemistry, making sweet love to their draft board, obviously. And Aunt Laura chimes in. I look forward to seeing and hear from all you guys. Feeling is mutual, Aunt Laura. And I love the spring post a few days ago. You think you posted something on spring, and I was really into that. So shout out to Aunt Laura and Anthony Finkel. I'll go with Justin Gianelli first, because let's talk about the Jets. I'll get to the Giants in a second. But, I mean, was this one of the best Jet draft classes that the Jets have ever had, at least maybe in you and I, our lifetime, and Anthony Finkel, since we're all kind of in the same range, I mean, of age? I mean, what do you think?
All right, let's be honest here. Joe Douglas made one of the worst moves in NFL history. He traded away the 69th overall pick. He gave away the nicest pick of the draft. All right, no, all kidding aside, how could you not love what the Jets have done? I mean, I was all for Sauce Gardner at number 4 because I think he's a unicorn of a cornerback. How many corners are 6'3"? You know, with that kind of speed. So not only does he have the arm length to match up with receivers, he's got the speed to match up with them down the field. He's a rare talent when it comes to the cornerback position, and I think he's going to be a game changer for this Jets defense. I mean, you already signed DJ Reed in free agency. You know, we've seen how talented Bryce Hall has been, and some of the plays he's made already for the Jets. So I mean, right there, adding to the secondary, you know, and originally at 10, I was thinking that they were going to go pass rusher since they went corner at 4. But, you know, you saw the wide receiver run start at number 8 when Drake London went to the Atlanta Falcons. And I think the Jets were like, well, we really love Garrett Wilson, and we really want him at number 10. And I mean, and how could you not love that pick? I mean, as somebody who's watched Garrett Wilson's every single snap, I mean, he is just absolutely a game changer on offense. And then to watch Jermaine Johnson just continue to fall. Joe Douglas is like, you know what? I'm back in. And they were able to acquire the 26th pick from the Titans. And there they go. They got their pass rusher. So on day 1 alone, they filled a big need at corner, a big need at wide receiver, and a big need as a pass rusher. And then today they draft the best running back in the draft, Breece Hall. So I mean, their first 4 picks, and obviously that's obviously all they've done so far, I mean, have been absolute home runs. And this is the type of draft that can be franchise altering for the New York Jets. Now, obviously, it all comes down to Zach Wilson. But
That's the big key, and I hear that all the time. Daniel Sutherland watching. Yep.
Has the weapons. They signed Tyler Conklin. They signed CJ Uzomah. Obviously, we saw the talent out of Michael Carter last year. Tevin Coleman will be a third down running back as well. I mean, Corey Davis and Elijah Moore, and now you add Garrett Wilson to that wide receiver room. The Jet offense is going to be good. And you know what? And that's an offensive line. That's not all that bad either. You know, could you say they can upgrade the center position? Absolutely. Their interior with Elijah Vera Tucker, and they upgraded. They signed
Laken Tomlinson.
Yeah, Laken Tomlinson. Thank you. They signed him, so their interior at guard is set. You're going to have George Fant. And by the way, who won this draft more than Mekhi Becton last night? Because you know what? They could have absolutely gone with Ike Ekwonu at number 4 if they were that concerned about Mekhi Becton. So clearly there is a level of confidence that at least Mekhi Becton is working his way back. And that, yeah, they're going to probably draft a tackle at some point in this draft. And of course, but now you're doing it out of depth. You're not doing it to somebody because, you know, Becton's job is in trouble. So, I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better start to this draft for the New York Jets. You really couldn't.
No question about that. And before I get to Chris, and Anthony's got a question for you, Justin. Over under on Jets wins this season. Boy, we're already getting to that point. We're already that excited.
Tough. It's tough because they're going to play a tough schedule and a tough AFC. But I have said since the end of the season, minimum 7. I mean, I want 9-8. Honestly, I want a winning season. I want
Can they get it though? Because Billy made a point, I think, in our group yesterday that the AFC is really tough right now. It's a really, really tough. We've talked about it here.
Right, and it's going and to their benefit, I believe they're playing the NFC North in the interconference.
Stuff anyway.
Which honestly, aside from Green Bay, Minnesota's not going to be all that great. Detroit's not going to be good. Chicago, we don't know what they are. Look, I mean, I'd like to say right now 7 wins and hoping for a little bit better, and we'll see how the rest of the roster shapes out, how the rest of the draft shapes out. But you're gonna see a lot of improvement as long as Zach Wilson takes that next step in year 2 for sure. And you're getting to a point where the Jet roster is almost comparable to the Patriot roster, and they've had a really
it should be better now.
Yeah, then people are questioning what Bill Belichick has done these first 2 days of the draft. Taking a guy projected to be in like the 3rd round.
Yep.
With the 29th overall pick, and then another reach. Thompson, I think his name was the receiver.
Yeah, Thornton, Baylor.
Yeah. So, and that it seemed to be a reach for a lot of people. So,
yep.
Bill Belichick seems to be a little bit outsmarting himself. I mean, you can never deny he's the greatest coach of all time. But I don't know. I still don't really know about him as Bill the GM.
Well, we're going to definitely find that out here, I'm sure, over the offseason here. Chris, I mean, we had a lot of talk here about the Jets. I'm almost afraid to ask you. I mean, it seems, I remember all those months ago, you said be positive with the Jets. I'm telling you, things are going to turn around. You know what? We took calls during the season. It was Joey Bostrom, Anthony Finkel was on the phone. We had other people calling up about the Jets, and they were like, woe is me. And I guess you were a Nostradamus almost.
I had faith in my GM and in my head coach. You know what? The draft didn't start off the way I really wanted it to be honest.
Okay, talk to me.
After the 10 pick, I was a little upset because I'm saying we need an edge rusher more than anything, right? And it was great getting Sauce Gardner at 4. Garrett Wilson, getting him at 10 was great too. But I'm like, we still need an edge rusher. And then Jermaine Johnson kept on falling. And I said, you know what? If he falls down enough, they're going to go up and get him. And sure enough, we made the move to go up and get him. And that first round is probably, I'm not going to say probably, it may go down as the greatest first round of a Jets draft ever.
Wow. I mean, if you're saying that, because you've seen a lot more drafts than Justin
and myself. How many others that, like maybe the Mangold and Ferguson.
A lot of people were talking about the 2000 draft too.
Yeah.
That's the one we had
drafted Sean Ellis and John Abraham back to back. And then you got Chad Pennington. And then you came back into the first round again and drafted Anthony Beck. And Beck was a solid player in his own right.
Yeah, no, those were good. But let's hope that this one ends up better. You know what I mean? I want to say in a couple of years we're in the Super Bowl, but that's going away, way ahead of us there.
Of course.
And then the second round, we, like you said, we traded up to get the best running back in the draft, which is pretty amazing. I mean, yeah, we still got holes. The one spot, and I've been saying it on Twitter and to the other guys that I talked to, we need another tackle. I know we got 2 starting offensive tackles, but listen, one of them is a huge question mark. As much as we want to think positive about Becton, we have not seen him play a full season yet. So until he does that, we can't just sit back and say, "Oh yeah, no, he'll be fine." We don't know that.
And that was kind of my point, though. It's like I feel good enough in Becton that I did not need to draft a franchise-changing tackle in the first round. I would like now that we're going to the middle rounds, we're in the Jets' next pick is at 101 unless they trade up, which I'm who the hell knows? Jay Douglas is a master of these moving around with the picks, but don't be surprised 3rd, 4th, 5th round that they draft a tackle or 2. And at this point, it's going to be all depth for the offensive line. It's going to be maybe another linebacker or 2, maybe another more depth in the secondary. Right. So I mean, there's a lot of ways he could play this, but you can't say he hasn't filled the holes beautifully so far.
And remember, one of our starting tackles that we're going to have this year, George Fant, was actually signed last year to be like the floating tackle that we were going to like the backup tackle. He
right,
wasn't,
and now he's on the final year of his deal.
right, and the final year, right, and he had off-season knee surgery. So all that stuff, tackle is still. I mean, yes, if we cross our fingers enough and they make it through the season healthy, we'll be fine. I have no, I have 100% confidence in their playing ability. It's about them staying healthy. So that's where I'm. Other than that, I feel so good about this team. Listen,
Yeah, they got the pieces, and I'm looking at your post here under our comment on Facebook, and I mean, I was speaking with somebody that watches us during the week, and we were speaking. I'll get to Billy and the Giants in a second because I want to come back to the Giants because they had just as an important draft as well,
Absolutely.
and I look at some of the needs they had, and it was like, well, they might get a receiver. Well, running back, yeah, if we could get one, that really wasn't a thought, but certainly we wanted an edge, and to get defensive help, we had the guy we wanted. So, I mean, in a sense, the Jets got the ingredients that they needed to cook the meal. I mean, if you're a Jets fan right now, even obviously in the Jet office right now, the front office, I mean, you got everything you want. Even if you didn't have another good pick for the next, few rounds between today and the end of the weekend, I mean, you got to be happy as pig.
And you know what? There is absolute no excuse for this offense to go. There's no excuse anymore for Zach Wilson.
Nope.
Zach Wilson has to take the next step. He has to. There's no, there's none. I mean, he's got the receivers. He's got tight ends. Like you said, we signed a couple of tight ends this year. We got the receiver core. We got two really good running backs now behind him. The offensive line last year, I think, finished 12th in PFF. And that was
I thought the line was good last year.
Yeah, it was solid.
And then you add Laken Tomlinson to that line,
right.
and hopefully a healthy Mekhi Becton,
right?
And you're legit potentially talking about a top 10 offensive line.
Easy.
So you're going to be able to get the ground game going because there's going to be enough holes opened up for Michael Carter and Breece Hall, and obviously Tevin Coleman to spell as well. And then the pass protection for Zach Wilson should be a whole lot better, and he should be able to. I think the biggest part is having a guy like CJ Uzomah and Tyler Conklin because they can be that safety blanket that Zach didn't have last year because the Jets tight end spot didn't exist essentially.
All right, well,
that's why tight end position is so important because when all else breaks down, the tight end can act as a safety blanket and be a nice, easy completion.
And to be honest, if you look back at all of the Shanahan-style offenses, think about all the great tight ends that they've had throughout the years.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
You could go back years, but most recently, look at what Kittle is doing in Arizona, San Fran, and he was what, a 5th-round pick, 4th-round pick? So, tight end is huge. So, and we got 2 starting tight ends now, not just one.
Well, I mean, if you needed one, now you got 2. So obviously, the Jets are in a comfortable position to say the least here. But I mean, Billy, I want to go back to the Giants, and I'll get back to some other things here in the draft because I know a lot of people I see are obviously tuned into the draft, and the draft is a hot topic, and I'm definitely glad that we talked about it here to lead off. And there's other things I'm going to try to work in. Trevor Bauer suspension, Joel Embiid, and Rangers as well. I'll get to all that.
And I have the draft on right now, so I'm keeping track of the picks. I'm still waiting for the other quarterbacks.
We have what? We have what? Matt Corral hasn't been drafted yet?
Matt Corral and Malik Willis have not been drafted yet.
So far, just Kenny Pickett has been picked.
Kenny Pickett's the only quarterback. He went 20 to the Steelers.
All right, Billy. So talk to me here. Let's come back to the Giants because the Jets, we got the Jets story, and I want to move on and get to the Giants story a little bit more. I mean, walk me through how you feel right now. You made a good point in that the Jets are a little bit, I guess, past the Giants or ahead of the Giants when it comes to the rebuild. But obviously, it's a good start. I've seen Donald Stewart in our Sportswire radio group, and Donald, of course, covers the Giants for us on the radio station here. And I mean, what's your expectations now between, let's say, now and the end of the weekend and with this team going forward on these 2 important picks that the Giants made in the top 10?
Yeah, I mean, I expect them to trade down a few more times. They obviously traded down twice at the top of the second round. I think Shane wants to get as many picks as he can. Certainly, you saw what Buffalo did where they kind of built the team and then plug Josh Allen in. I think Joe Shane wants to replicate that with the Giants eventually, where he kind of builds a good team and then plugs in whatever quarterback he ends up picking when he moves on from Jones. So you take advantage. I mean, look, in reality, as a GM, until you pick your quarterback, you have almost unlimited rope. You can, I don't want to say fans will tolerate, but if I put it, fans will tolerate a rebuilding phase where you don't have that young quarterback because they kind of see that as the switch.
Right.
So until they make that move, you can spend this draft just accruing talent, taking dart throws, hoping you land guys. I was very happy after day one. I mean, Kayvon Thibodeau, I think, was the second best player in the draft behind Aiden Hutchinson. No idea what the Jaguars are doing there, but I don't know what that was.
Well, we'll get into that. We'll get
into
to
to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Stingley's such a boomer bust pick for a team that has such a low level of talent there already. I would have gone Gardner if I were Houston and I wanted a cornerback. But then, I mean, I love Thibodeau. I think he's going to be a really good player. A little concerned that he never really took that huge step in college that you expect him to, but at the same time, he was productive for over 3 years. And, again, like I alluded to earlier, a lot of the concerns were, that he has interest outside of football. And that's such an outdated mindset that, this guy is interested in things. He doesn't live football 24/7, so he's not dedicated. Like, this is a job. I actually think it's better to have interest outside of football because there's never been any highs and lows playing in the NFL. And, when you live for the game, you can't deal with those as well as you can when, you see it as, this is my job and, I have other interests. So when things aren't going well, I can step away and kind of come back to it. And then, I mean, the 7th pick, Evan Neal, I know some teams had concerns about his medical records and such. I loved him. I think he's a plug-and-play guy right now. He can play left or right tackle just like Andrew Thomas can. Certainly I think he gives them great picks. I didn't love the pick in round 2. I thought that was a bit of a reach, especially with the wide receivers you still have on the roster. But I love trading down twice. And certainly, if I was going to take someone, I would have taken Mechie, who the Texans took with the next pick. I think he was a better fit in the offense, especially if Slayton is getting traded. But I mean, overall, I think it's been a good draft. And, at this point, you fill in some things. The one thing I'm going to say is, please, for the love of God, do not draft the punt god, that as he's known as.
I'm the second person that has told me that in the last 24 hours. You're the second person that's told me that.
I'm fine with it if you're a good team trying to just add any talent you can in the late rounds and, then yeah, it's worth it. You're a rebuilding team. You don't draft a punter. I'm sorry. You just don't do it. So
I never heard of a winning team drafting a punter. I mean, am I missing something here, guys? For everybody, I'll open it to everybody here.
Sounds like something the Rams are probably going to do.
Yeah, it's kind of what I was thinking.
But they're the Super Bowl champions, though. I mean, you're not a team.
Yeah, but you know what they released Johnny Hecker in the offseason. I think he signed with the Cowboys or something.
Yeah, you're right. I think you're right.
But I know for sure they released Hecker. But
Panthers.
By the way, speaking of the world champion Rams, have they picked yet?
No. They can pick like the 3rd round or the 4th round or something.
Of course.
Yeah, sometimes
they wanted the guy that
beat them picks.
The Patriots' first round pick, they wanted him with their first pick at like 103 or something.
I think they have the next to last pick of round 3.
Yeah, they have 104.
Yeah, it's like a compensatory.
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys tried to say it rather than I did.
Yeah,
I know I would have butchered it like 4 different times.
You know that Jared Goff is their last first round pick.
That's
they trade all those first round picks to just move up to number 1, and then they keep trading away for talent.
Yeah, they don't care. They don't care about picks.
Let me get to a few other things here.
They just won the Super Bowl.
Let me see what I get to here. I think Chris just posted something here. Falcons drafted here at it looks like Ritter here at 74. Is that accurate?
Yep, our second quarterback just came off the board finally at pick 74. Desmond Ritter, the quarterback out of Cincinnati.
Yep.
Finally, and I'm very shocked he went ahead of Malik Willis and Matt Corral.
So let me ask you guys a question then, because Malik Willis came up on a few different shows. We heard John Gonzalez mentioning. Where is John Gonzalez, who was basically boasting on the Sports Authorities group? When are we coming on? And 9:30, and yada yada yada. I'm sure we'll hear from him now that I've mentioned his name.
Point, yeah.
But what do you make of that in terms of guys like a Malik Willis or a Matt Corral still on the board? Why do you think that is? I'll open up to anybody here that wants to jump in. Why do you think that is so far?
Well, okay, so I think this answer is twofold here. Number one, I'm going to start with Matt Corral. I just don't think Matt Corral's all that good. Like I couldn't, for the life of me, as the season was going on, I couldn't for the life of me understand why people were thinking he was first round talent. I said from the get-go, he was third, maybe fourth round talent at best. And here we are, round 3. Matt Corral still sitting here on the board. As for Malik Willis, I think there's just a bit of an unknown factor here because the guy played at Liberty. And I know last year they took Trey Lance. The 49ers took Trey Lance number 3 overall out of North Dakota State. But we've kind of had a track record of North Dakota State quarterbacks being drafted. Remember, Carson Wentz went second overall to the Eagles. I forget what round it was, but the Chargers drafted Easton Stick. It might have been the 4th round pick. But we've seen a bit of a track record of North Dakota State quarterbacks being drafted. You don't know much about Liberty, honestly, and the competition he faces, plus his readiness in the NFL.
For you guys here, why do you think again Willis and Corral haven't been drafted yet? Now that we're going deeper into the rounds now, what do you guys think?
I think he said it right. They're just not that good, And are they? There's too much of a mystery on Willis, and the other guys, they're just not ranked that high. And you could tell just by nobody. I mean, there's a couple of teams that are very quarterback needy at this point. Look at Carolina. I mean, they got Sam Darnold starting for them again. That's pretty bad. So you would think they would have at least, okay, all right, maybe they didn't think I'm gonna draft him with our 6th pick. But you know what? In the 2nd round, maybe I'll grab him there. They didn't even grab him there. So
Atlanta, Seattle,
or something. I don't think.
I did hear that they're pretty high. They're heating up talks with Cleveland for Baker Mayfield.
That was the Panthers, right?
Yeah,
Carolina. Yeah. So maybe Seattle grabs a quarterback. I don't know. I could see them going maybe in the 3rd, late 3rd round, maybe in the 4th round, possibly. I mean, next year is where you got the better quarterbacks, right? You got C.J. Stroud, and you got
Bryce Young.
So you got better quarterbacks there. You'll see more quarterback action next year's draft.
And those two right now are lock 1st round picks.
Probably top 2.
Yeah, barring a catastrophic bad season or catastrophic injury. That they're going to be at the top of the draft next year. It'll be interesting to see who's bad because I don't exactly feel like Detroit's gotten a little bit better, but they're probably going to be right there again. I don't feel like Jacksonville's gotten any better, to be honest with you.
No, but they're not going. They're not moving from Lawrence after 2 years. I wouldn't think.
But that's my point. It's going to depend on who's at the top of the draft, and if Jacksonville and Detroit are at the top of the draft again. Okay, maybe Detroit takes a quarterback next year, but Jacksonville's not taking a quarterback, and that kind of throws a wrench into who is, how high up they could go.
And John Gonzalez is here with us, and obviously he says, "Have no fear." His presence is here. And John, I got to let you know that the Brute Force Brad Weiss, I know you mentioned him on the Sports Authorities, which of course everybody has to go join on Facebook because obviously Chris is a moderator, I'm a moderator, and a few other people from the show are really a big part of that group. But the Brute Force is coaching, and he was coaching up until about 20 minutes ago. And I don't even know if he has a voice right now. So he might be watching. He might not, John. So it looks like you might finally have won up to the Brute Force Brad Weiss. So congratulations, John Gonzalez. I guess the Brute Force is kind of thinking about how to make a rebuttal for the Detroit Lions. But obviously you have definitely one-upped him tonight. So obviously, I'll give you that one. But anything else, you guys? I mean, obviously, we're on Tobacco Road Sports Radio. We're on Northeast Streaming Sports Channel. It's great that we've got to recap the Jets and Giants and a little bit on players like Malik Willis and Matt Corral. But for everybody else here, I mean, what are your other impressions here of the draft so far? I'll go with Billy first, and I'll go with Justin. Back to Chris.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, the Jaguars, I think, made an awful pick with Walker. I think he's going to be a good player, but there were at least 2, and I would even say maybe 3 edge rushers better than him available, And that's just a Jacksonville pick, They want the splashy name. They want the athletic traits instead of, the productive player. And I'll be honest, because I know a lot of people were high on Kyle Hamilton. I don't see it as the safety. I don't know that I don't think he really has the athleticism to do what he did in college at this level. I don't put too much stock in like 40-yard times and whatever, but I just, for some reason, I feel like he's just someone that if there wasn't for the fact that it was such a weak draft, like at the top, he wouldn't have been talked about nearly as much. I don't think he can be that do-it-all safety that he was at Notre Dame at this level. I think he'll have a role, he'll be a player, but it's so hard for a safety to come in and do that. We've seen some safeties in the past that have been kind of touted as, he can do whatever, Jamal Adams, Jabril Peppers, Landon Collins, and they get to the pros and, they're basically linebackers playing in the secondary. I feel like it's really rare to see someone who can actually both be an in-the-box safety and a free safety. And I don't see the athleticism from Kyle Hamilton to do that. So that's kind of my hot take on the draft. I don't think Kyle Hamilton was as good as people thought he was.
For you, Justin, give me some impressions here on the draft so far, outside of the Jets and Giants, and what are some things that have stood out to you most so far?
Well, my first to kind of branch off what Billy was saying, I like Hamilton at 14. I think that's a nice safe spot. He was talked about in the top 5 of the draft for a long time, and to me that just never made any sense. For me, I'm gonna take the Ohio State angle right here. I mean, there are 3 leading receivers from the 2020 season in which they ended up losing to Alabama in the national championship game. Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, and Jamison Williams. In that order, it was Wilson, Olave, and Williams going 10, 11, and 12. 3 straight wide receivers going, formerly of Ohio State. Now, obviously, Williams finished his career at Alabama, and I like that. Honestly, I like that pick for Detroit. It's a good setup for the future move because we'll see how much Jamison Williams plays this year, coming off the torn ACL. He's saying he should be ready for training camp, but I got to imagine that the Lions are going to take this slow here. They're going to make sure that knee is fully healthy and that he's ready to go when he's 100%. But I love that pick of Jamison Williams. Was texting back and forth with my friend John Stewart. He's been on the Baseball Banter many times.
Yes, love John Stewart.
He's a big Penn State guy, and he's high on Jahan Dotson, the wide receiver, going to Washington now.
Okay.
He did say he thought it was a tad bit of a reach. He was more of a mid-20s guy, but he definitely has the talent to be one of the better receivers in this draft. And you know what? The run on receivers, and then you got the major trades. The one that came out of nowhere was Hollywood Brown going to the Arizona Cardinals for the 23rd overall pick, and then obviously you had AJ Brown going to the Eagles in exchange for the 18th pick, where the Tennessee Titans drafted his replacement right away in Arkansas's Treylon Burks. So the wide receiver shuffling continues, and obviously the biggest storyline is the non-movement of Deebo Samuel, and I don't know that he gets moved at this point unless somebody else comes up with an offer, because clearly at this point, unless Joe Douglas has another major fleece in him, Deebo to the Jets is dead. That's totally dead.
Yeah, that's not happening now.
No.
So let me get to a couple of comments from John Gonzalez because I have a lot I want to get to. The first one here is, look, the draft is made in these middle to late rounds. Excellent point. Like your third rounds, fourth rounds. Anyone can draft in the first round. This is where you do your homework and the scouting and build your team. The great teams have always been good at that. I want to get to here. He likes what the Ravens did, taking Penning, Olajabo, and Hamilton. Okay, good point there. And he also has here on the Jets. Jets had a solid first round. I would have taken Kenneth Walker instead of Hall, but they did good in the first round. Chris, I see a nod in your head. You want to address that?
I like Kenneth Walker a lot too, but I think Hall's the breakaway speed that he has over Walker, I think that kind of puts him a little bit above. But I like
agree.
Walker a lot.
And I watched, I watched Kenneth Walker come into Columbus last year as the leading rusher and then end up with like 5 yards against Ohio State. I mean, if you're that talented of a running back, you find a way to get your yards against the great teams. And Breece Hall, granted, Big 12 don't play that much defense, but the speed as a running back just obviously changes everything, because you get to the second level. I mean, he is the type of Breece Hall's the type of back that is a home run hitter. You get to that second level, might as well be gone for that matter.
And he's a great receiver out of the backfield as well. On top of it,
and I think that's huge as a complementary duo with Michael Carter.
Oh yeah.
I want to go back to the comment that anyone can draft in the first round, though.
Okay.
John, let me direct you to the New York Giants 2019 draft class. In the first round,
I'm glad somebody caught that. I'm glad somebody caught that here.
Daniel Jones, who sucks. Dexter Lawrence, okay player, but a nose tackle. You don't draft a nose tackle in the first round.
Right.
And DeAndre Baker, who's in cell block D somewhere for robbing a party. So no, not anyone can draft in the first round. Let's get that.
I like the new direction here.
You could say we could listen as Jet fans. We have had really bad drafts, so yeah, it's not a.
And look what just happened today with the Las Vegas Raiders declining the 5th-year option on was a Cleveland Ferrell.
Yeah, like
Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs, which is surprising because I thought Josh Jacobs was a very good back,
but he gets hurt a lot.
Yeah, that's the issue. And then there was one other player. There was it was like Jets, a three first round pick draft.
Didn't they already cut that guy though? That third guy?
No, I don't think so, because they wouldn't have had the option then.
Well, plus they drafted the
so Billy, John Gonzalez has got a little bit of a rebuttal for you. If you'd like to chime in here, I'll read off the comment. He says the Giants had a great first round, but their second round pick was a head scratcher. They should have picked Trey McBride or David Ojabo. McBride is a beast. You have a thought or two on that, my friend?
I agree with that. I would have taken McBride there. Ojabo, after you took Thibodeau and you already have Azeez Ojulari, I don't know that I would have taken Ojabo, especially with the Giants roster being so barren. But McBride would have been a great player and filled a need. That would have been my pick there over Ojabo or the receiver they actually took. So, yeah, I don't disagree with that at all.
If they wanted to go receiver, the guy that was drafted right after him, John Mechie, I would go Wando Robinson.
Especially if
Ojabo is hurt, right? So he's coming back. Plus, he's a project to begin with, because I think he just started playing football in college, right?
And he also, again, he's not going to play that much for the Giants. They have their edge rushers are actually surprisingly good with Thibodeau and Azeez Ojulari, their second round pick last year, who had a real nice season for them. So I don't know that I would have gone in that direction. But yeah, I agree with Mechie, especially, if Darius Slayton is getting traded or not getting re-signed, which is probably a pretty good bet at this point after this year. Mechie can fill that role of, the guy who take the top off over the defense. So yeah, I would have gone many other directions than they did there. But I mean, look, I'm still happy they had a good first round.
Yeah.
They have a lot of picks that can kind of make up for it later in the draft.
And I got to get into a little bit of a quick breaking news when it comes to the draft, because I want to get to Billy's comment here a few minutes ago, and he had mentioned that the Mets are an inning away from a combined no-hitter. Oh, by the way, the Mets are an inning away from a combined no-hitter, so which we know is, for those who are Met fans and not, that doesn't happen too often. Am I jinxing it right now at the moment?
I mean, it's weird I have a weird feeling about this, because it's like,
And the Rays Red Sox in the past week, we know that the Rays had a no hitter, but
Right,
it didn't count because it was a
I
9
don't remember.
no
I don't even
hitter.
remember if they ended up winning that game because it was 0-0 going to
3-2 they
ninth.
won, right? 3-2.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least the Mets are winning here. But at the same time, I don't know how to feel about it because it's
A
not
combined no hitter doesn't have the same feeling that
exactly.
one starter doing a
And you
no-hitter
knew
does.
from the
Didn't
jump.
the Yankees have one year? Chris, was it Pascual? Am I thinking it was against the Yankees? Pascual Perez, I think, or something like that. One year it was
Correct.
White Sox Yankees or something like that. Like a five. And then it was like a 5 pitcher. Then there was one year I think Astros Yankees. Was it Dallas?
And that was a
Astros-
different situation because
The
I
Astros
think,
against the Yankees.
Yeah.
that was a
It
different
was a rain
situation
out.
because I remember the starter might have even been Roy Oswalt that day for the Astros.
Yeah.
But I think he got hurt.
Yeah.
And that's what led to the bullpen.
Yeah, he only went
Well,
like
that was
4 or 5
back when you didn't pull starters when they had no hitters.
Right, exactly. and you knew from the jump. You knew from the jump Tyler McGill wasn't going 9 because A, they're trying to limit his innings, and B, he racked up a very high pitch count early on. He threw 90 pitches in 5 innings. I mean, there's just no way that was happening tonight. And you do have to protect Tyler at all costs because he's shown how good he is so far. Earlier, or when he first came up last year and early in the year this year. So,
And we have a comment here real quick from Mr. John Gonzalez. Says, I don't agree with the comments on where Malik Willis played. If you can play in the NFL, scouts will find you no matter where you played. I mean, Wayne Corbett famously, right, is an example of that, to be fair.
But I think that's not entirely true, though, because there is such a difference between FCS level football and FBS level football. He's not playing the SEC week after week. He's not playing the Big Ten week after week. And look, the game is just that much faster. The only level of college football that's as close to the NFL as the SEC.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
So, I mean, it's going to be an incredible jump from Liberty. By the way, can anyone here name their mascot?
Liberty?
Yes.
Again, I didn't know they had a football team until about a year ago.
Flames. The Flames.
What is it?
The Flames.
The Flames. Okay.
Yes.
I was expecting John Gonzalez to know that for whatever reason because he's like our Adam Schefter of Sportswire already. I was expecting.
I was testing everybody yesterday if anybody could name UT Chattanooga because that's where Cole Strange came from.
Yeah, I did notice that.
I think so. Yeah. He went to Chattanooga.
Yeah, T.O., right?
Well, let me ask you guys a question real quick because we're on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, and I almost have to bring it up because obviously, when you think about Tobacco Road, Carolina, and I wanted to ask everybody here before maybe we move back away from the draft for a little bit and talk about some other topics here. I mean, I got to work in the Carolina Panthers. I mean, for everybody here, what's your impressions on them so far in their draft?
I'm high. I mean, they were able to draft Nicky Ekwonu. Because of the way the draft shaping out, and because of Walker going 1, Hutchinson 2, and then the 2 corners going 3, 4. The Giants taking Kayvon 5. They're able to get presumably the best tackle in the draft. I know people have debated that between Ekwonu and Evan Neal, and I think that's going to help whoever's at quarterback. I mean, whether it's they might go into the season with Sam Darnold as a starter, and that's horrifying. But at the same time, they're going to do their best right now to protect him at all costs to see if he can just give them anything. So I really love that pick. But I really think that if they don't trade for Baker Mayfield, I think that they're going to draft one later.
For anybody else here, a thought or two on the Carolina Panthers for our Tobacco Road Sports Radio listeners?
Yeah, I like the pick getting Ekwonu. He was, basically the best tackle in the draft. So you get him, he's your franchise left tackle now for the next decade, hopefully. The quarterback is still the issue, and there's a bigger issue too. I was saying this before. I came on, I was talking to someone else about it. Look at Carolina and look at Matt Rule. He has not been able to draft his own guy at quarterback, right? First year, they signed Teddy Bridgewater. And then last year, they end up getting Sam Darnold. I mean, that's not what you do with a new head coach. A new head coach usually gets their own quarterback in there, drafts. He hasn't had a chance to. And he's basically probably going to be gone after this year because there's no way they're going to win with Sam Darnold as the quarterback.
And you know what? That's why I'm kind of glad. That's why I'm kind of glad that they didn't take a first-round quarterback or try to trade back in, because at least for Kenny Pickett's sake,
Mike Tomlin's not going
anywhere. Mike Tomlin has put together enough of a resume. And
who's in that Bill Belichick territory almost?
Tomlin will leave when he wants to.
Yeah,
who's in Bill Belichick territory? Let's take
exactly. Mike Tomlin's had a terrific career, and you know what? I think Kenny Pickett is the perfect guy for Pittsburgh. And I hate putting a first round quarterback with a coach who is potentially on his way out. That's why I love what they did with the Jets with drafting Zach Wilson last year in Robert Saleh's first year, because now going into year 2, you have Robert Saleh, you have the offensive coordinator, the hell's his name? LaFleur, Mike LaFleur.
Yep.
So and now, even though he didn't start the year last year, you have the same 3 quarterbacks that finished the season a year ago with Mike White, Joe Flacco, and Zach Wilson. So now your offensive room is exactly the same, and now you're adding pieces around it, and that's the continuity that could really put Zach Wilson in success territory. And that's where it puts it all up to him.
Let me get to the John Gonzalez comment, because I think Billy was trying to read above the comment. It's a long one. I have to agree. It's a long one.
The comment's so long you can't even see Billy's face.
We're losing Billy.
It's like one of our listeners who's on Facebook who gives me like a 3-page book report, like on his daily activities. I won't name his name. And he gives me like a picture afterwards. This is what I did. Unfortunately, he's special needs, so you have to, be okay with it. But let's get to what John Gonzalez says here, because he does make a valid point. The Cowboys took Ed Too-Tall Jones from Tennessee State and Hollywood Henderson from Little Lincoln University. Ken Anderson was from Augustina College. Jerry Rice was from Mississippi Prairie View. The list is endless. I mean, I guess Randy Moss and Chad Pennington were what? Marshall.
Yeah.
Brett Favre, Southern Miss.
I think the point with why the quarterbacks weren't taken, it wasn't about where they played. It was basically they just weren't that good this year. It's as simple as that. Even Kenny Pickett, you can make an argument. He wasn't that good.
Sure.
Right? So it doesn't I totally agree with John. If the talent is there, they will find you and you'll be drafted. So it's not about where they're played. Yeah, it's a lot easier if you're playing in a big school, sure. LSU, Ohio State, whatever. But listen, if you're that good, they will find you. But I think just this year, the talent level just was not that good with the at the quarterback position. And I think Carolina is going to punt this year. They're going to have a top 5 pick next year, and they're going to go for one of the quarterbacks we mentioned earlier.
Well, the future is not going to be Sam Darnold, because we saw that with the Jets. It definitely ain't happening. And who knows? Listen. And
you know what? Speaking of Carolina, in college, Sam Howell was one of the quarterbacks still on the board of UNC. So I'm interested to see what round he goes in. Maybe 4th, but obviously Malik Willis and Matt Corral is still sitting out there, and there's no telling when that these guys are going to go.
And Carolina's next pick is in the 4th round too.
Yeah, okay. Those guys might be there for them.
So
yeah, the one thing I'm going to say for Carolina is if they're paying Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold combined like $39 million this year, they need to reevaluate a lot, because it's just not for 2 bad quarterbacks. It's a lot of money,
And the Lions should jump on Willis or Howell. Got to have a Lions comment, right, John Gonzalez?
But you know what, though? He's not wrong. At this point, why not? Because you're clearly set. The NFL has clearly said that these guys are not starter worthy in year 1, because that's what it's come down to. when you're a first round pick because because of the way the contracts are structured, you need to jump in right away as a rookie quarterback. And I'm sure we're going to see Kenny Pickett on the field this year. Whether Mitch Trubisky starts the season or not, it's a different story. But, they're clearly saying that Malik Willis is not ready to start day one, and he's going to be a third, fourth round pick. You know what? Why not start the season with Jared Goff and then maybe move to Malik Willis if things aren't working out well, or Sam Howell? I mean, why not at this point?
And John also chimes in. I like Alec Pierce as a sleeper pick from Cincinnati. And also got to get to the Giants' most recent pick. Thanks to Chris for giving us that. Giants draft Cordell Flott, cornerback from LSU. So the Giants have that pick there. And Alec Pierce is a sleeper pick from Cincinnati. Anybody feel differently? Anybody like the pick? What do you think here?
Oh, I like that pick a lot. Definitely Alex Pierce. Very good wide receiver. Yep. Good slot guy. Definitely. Good pick.
So far, and I know it's still like John Gonzalez makes a great point. We still have the middle rounds here, and we have the weekend, and there'll be teams that'll scout this out, and maybe next week we'll have another thought or two on it for sure, undoubtedly. But for you three guys here, and I know it's hard to pick, but give me a few winners and a few losers in the draft so far. I'll go with Billy first, and I'll work my way around to Justin and Chris.
Yeah, I mean, winners, I think, like Don said in the group chat we have going on, I think, the Giants, the Jets, the Ravens are all winners. I love the moves they've made. Losers, I mean, the Jaguars, I think, are definitely, losers.
What is that franchise doing? I mean, Tony Khan, is he just focused on wrestling so much that he just can't get it right with the franchise? And I'm not trying to be facetious. I mean, obviously, look, we do wrestling and we have a following here with wrestling, but I mean, it's an honest question. I mean, I don't get it with the Jaguars franchise. I really don't. I mean, to me, they're like in Lions territory almost.
Actually, I'd put the Lions as a winner in this draft too,
Yes, absolutely. But I mean, in general, with the franchise's success.
The losers, I tell you, the Jaguars. I'm going to throw the Texans in there. And I'll be honest, I'm going to put the Titans in there too. I don't love the moves they've made. I don't think they got a whole ton from the Jets to trade down. I don't love trading away A.J. Brown. I don't know. You're paying Derrick Henry all this money. You kind of need to, you can't try to rebuild while you're paying a running back what they're paying Derrick Henry. You have to try and win. So I'm going to put the Titans in as a loser too, I think.
And John Gonzalez here, a few comments real quick before I get to the other guys here. Looks like Giants fell asleep after the first round. He likes what the Eagles did. Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean getting A.J. Brown. I mean, for you, Justin, give me some winners and losers so far in the draft, and we'll get to Chris right afterwards.
Well, I'm going to start right here. The two locals, I think the Jets and Giants have absolutely gotten off to wonderful starts here for the draft. And you know what? I'm going to parlay off of John Gonzalez's thought. I love what the Philadelphia Eagles have done. I think Jordan Davis is a freak athlete. I think he's going to be a massive run stuffer and a guy who can get to the quarterback from that nose tackle position. And then trading for A.J. Brown. I mean, just an impact player for Jalen Hurts to really work with at court, on that offense. And I really love what Philadelphia has done. Agree with Billy that you could put Detroit on this list. I mean, because I love Aiden Hutchinson at number 2. They kind of made the obvious pick there, but the trust and belief in Jamison Williams at number 12, I think, has big potential to pay off in absolute great fashion. I think once he's healthy, Jared Goff is going to love playing with him. As for my losers, I got to start with the New England Patriots. I think 2 insane reaches on their 2 picks so far. Very, very questionable at best. It doesn't. Obviously they have their young quarterback with Mac Jones, but their receiving core is not all that great. Their offense leaves a lot to be desired. Their defense was full of free agents last year, so I think that's a franchise actually in decline. And And I can agree with Billy that I think Jacksonville certainly could take an L here because you had the entire draft board at your disposal and you didn't take the best player. And I think to me the clear number one prospect of this draft was Aiden Hutchinson, and they didn't take him. They went Trayvon Walker, and I think Trayvon Walker is going to be a big time project going forward, and I think he's going to take a lot of developing. And I'm just not necessarily sure that going to Jacksonville is a great place for somebody who's a project because I don't exactly trust their development of young players. So I really do think that that's an issue. So I'm gonna really stick with New England and Jacksonville at this point.
Certainly, Jacksonville is becoming, I guess, a warm weather version of Siberia, if you could ever think about that. But I was trying to think of something cute on the fly. But for you, Chris, give me a few winners and losers so far in the draft.
Just to add on to the winners that you guys said, I agree with. I'm going to say the Texans actually did a pretty good job. They took Stingley in the first round. I know 3rd overall, but if that kid's healthy, he's right up there with Sauce as the best corner in the draft. So then they took Kenyon Green, really good guard. Petrie, the safety out of BYU. Baylor, really good. Then they got Mechie in the 2nd round after the Giants took their receiver. And then they took Christian Harris, the linebacker from Alabama. And then they took, just recently, they took Dolchik, the tight end from UCLA. So I liked what they did. I like Cincinnati. Cincinnati drafted Dax Hill from Michigan, the safety. And they drafted cornerback Cam Taylor-Britt. So helping out that secondary that they were a little weak in last year. And another team, like the rich get richer, I guess you want to say, is Kansas City did really well. Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis in the 1st round. That's going to beef up that defense.
They needed it too.
Yeah, exactly.
Kansas City, big time defensive need.
Exactly. And then they picked up Sky Moore, probably the best slot receiver in the whole draft.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was watching a little bit of the draft and the coverage there, and a lot of people were very high on that move. I did notice that.
And then they just added Brian Cook, the safety. So I thought they did pretty good as well. Those are just a couple of teams, like you said, the Patriots, two reaches at best that they took. The Giants outside the 1st round, I'm not impressed by their draft. First round,
Gonzalez just said a few minutes ago exactly what
first round was awesome, right? I thought those 2 guys were 2 guys I was hoping the Jets got. So trust me, I was happy not that I was happy, but definitely the Giants made some great moves in the 1st round. But after that, I'm not going to say I like the draft that they've done so far. After that.
What do you got here, Justin? I see a smile on the screen here. We got Justin and Billy smiling, and Chris is kind of the neutral observer here. He's our neutral special master.
No-hitter? Is that what we're celebrating?
The 2nd no-hitter in Mets history has been completed, with Edwin Diaz finishing it off.
Well, boy, the irony for those that are listening to this on Sportswire Radio and all of our platforms watching this, Edwin Diaz is combined in a Mets no-hitter. If you would have asked any Met fan that even yesterday, they would have said 420 was last week. That's what they would have said, right? That's what they would have said here.
Hey, all I'll say is this.
What about that date? I don't know.
All I'll say is this: Happy 64th birthday, Gary Cohen. You just got the 2nd no-hitter in Met history.
Wow. Okay. So, boy, I guess what a birthday gift, right? You get on your 64th birthday. Nobody's a bigger Met fan than Gary Cohen, yet we got here a Mets no-hitter, a combined one, the 2nd one in the franchise against the Philadelphia Phillies. No less.
Combined or not combined, I'll take any no-hitter against the Philadelphia Phillies.
Listen, 2 things, right? It's the Phillies, right? The Mets, one of the biggest rivals, and that Philly lineup. Think about who's in that lineup.
Very solid lineup. Tyler McGill went the first 5. Drew Smith an inning in the 3rd. Joely Rodriguez an inning, Seth Lugo 2/3 of an inning, and Edwin Diaz 5 pitchers.
Nice, good for them.
Yeah, listen, I guess Billy, do you look at it and say this is an important day in Mets? It's a combined no-hitter. So we were just speaking about that a few minutes ago. I mean, but it's still something. And Edwin Diaz, I'm just trying to rack my brain. Edwin Diaz, of all people, is involved in this combined no-hitter. I mean,
yeah. I mean, so I'll be honest, I'm actually a big fan of Edwin Diaz. I have been for a long time.
Tell me why, Billy McInerney. Please tell me why.
His stuff's electric. He had that brutal year in 2019 when
yes, he did.
Nobody could throw a slider because of the way the balls were. Ever since then, he had a couple of, he'll have a stinker every now and then, but he's a good pitcher. I mean, he struck out the side in order. He had guys reaching at pitches that were nowhere near the strikes. And when he's on his game, and he's on his game more often than he's not, he tends to be very good. Even last year, if you look in save situations, he was really good. It's when they were using him in non-save situations that he fell apart. So I do think, as long as they kind of keep him in those high leverage situations where he has that like extra adrenaline kick, I think he's a good pitcher. Certainly, I mean, no hitters are not uncommon, and they're becoming more and more common.
I know, but this is the Mets. This is the New York Mets we're talking about. No hitters in the New York Mets is like Chicago Cubs and World Series wins.
I'm glad their first one wasn't a combined no hitter. I'm glad Yohan Santana got one. But like I said, I'll take any no hitter, especially against a team like the Phillies. I'm not.
I'll tell you one thing, Billy and Justin, and maybe for anybody else that catches this or Rob Moroska, is that you look at the Mets season, and I'm walking before we go on the air here, and I get my usual big gulp 7-Eleven to kind of keep my voice going. And a guy stops me, and I didn't even know he was a baseball fan. He stops me and says, Tom, this Mets team, it's a special season so far. And I look back and I say, okay, we've won the first 6 series. Yeah, but it's still early, right? And now you got this. So it's almost in a sense, I know it's still early. We're still only 12% of the season in so far, whatever it is, do the math. But maybe the stars are aligning for this. You get a combined no-hitter. You've won every series. And, I mean, that could be the case. And John Gonzalez gives us an update here. Malik Willis to the Tennessee Titans. Well, listen, I mean, that's I would think, an important move for the Titans because we've talked about Ryan Tannehill quite a bit here. So, Tennessee Titans, Malik Willis. What do you guys all think about that?
I mean, Ryan Tannehill is hot garbage. So I mean, this is, you know what? It's coming close to the end of his tenure there. I think this is a good landing spot for Malik Willis.
Anybody else have a thought on that?
I think it's a good spot there. They have a good team where, if Malik Willis can play, this is where he's going to play well,
Okay.
He doesn't have to throw the ball accurately short because, you need short yardage games to give the ball to Derrick Henry and get out of the way, so he can focus on deep balls, which he does throw very well. So, I think if he's going to land somewhere, this isn't a bad place to land. I don't know about, we got another comment from John Gonzalez. I don't know about, him being Steve McNair, but, I think if he's going to play somewhere, he's going to have a good impact here as Pete Alonso and I don't know who else that is, just dumped a bunch of Gatorade and Edwin Diaz. Well, cold for that, but
I got to be honest. Thank God they had the no-hitter today, I guess, rather than yesterday, the day before at Citi Field, because my goodness, the temperatures in New York. I mean, I'm the goofball that was wearing shorts throughout the week in 40-degree weather. I mean, but it has been like December rather than April here. I mean,
I'm nervous for Sunday night, to be honest with you.
I was gonna say you're there Sunday night. I mean, what are you bringing? Like
this weekend, right? It's supposed to be in the 60s, right?
Yeah, so that means you'll probably have what?
But Chris, the game starts at 7:00 because it's Sunday night baseball.
It's cold fast too.
Yeah.
So that means you're going to be there first pitch, probably like 50-something degrees. By the time the game's over, it's probably going to be about, 50? So, you bringing here?
Right now it's saying 58 degrees at game time. I'll probably have a sweatshirt over this, and I'll take the sweatshirt off.
There you go. It's not that. Come on. It's New York. 50 degrees.
I know, but the last 2 days, but today is not too bad. The afternoon was very nice, but I mean, the last 2 days before, for those that are listening, and I was talking with one of my friends, and that was, I think Daniel Slavin called me before, and I said, what's the temperature in Florida? And he goes, 79. And he goes, what's it in New York? Because he's from New York. I said, well, it was like 49 yesterday. So, I mean.
Earlier, it was worse earlier in the week. Yesterday wasn't all that bad. It got windy late in the day.
Yeah, it was late.
But early in the week was just brutal. It just doesn't even feel like spring. And, Tom, from being outside a lot. I mean,
dude, I was out. Not to go on a weather tangent, but I was out 4 o'clock in the morning Wednesday and Thursday.
Even earlier than me, yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and it was like, okay, I pity you, Justin. I'm glad that that you're watching the game. You going to say something, Billy, before I get to another John Gonzalez comment here?
No, I was just trying to figure out what he's saying here.
And Jets here should take record if he's still available. Yeah,
he's talking about the tight end.
I would not be opposed to that at 101, to be honest with you.
No, I wouldn't. You know why? They signed two guys, right? Like you said, they signed Uzama and they signed what's the other guy from Minnesota?
Kyler Conklin.
Right.
But you know what? But you know what? Tight end has been such a black hole for this franchise, and the fact that you can now have three guys that you can rotate in and out, and you know what? The reason why I like this is what people are not realizing, or people who don't watch Ohio State games from start to finish like I do, is that Jeremy Ruckert was not heavily involved in their passing game. Right. They did not utilize the tight ends quite as much as you would think, and he could really rotate in as a run blocking tight end, and then it kind of gives you that three-headed monster that can rotate in and out. And then you got the youngest one here, where they're Uzama and Conklin are tied in for a few years. I think Conklin might only be a 2-year deal, though. It's either 2 or 3. Yeah. I knew Uzama got a 4-year deal, but that allows Rucker to rotate in as well. I wouldn't be opposed to it, honestly. The Jets have filled so many needs, and I still think that there's plenty of time to get an offensive tackle, and I think that I'm sure that they will. At 101, I'm not totally against that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if that's their higher ranked player at this point, then I guess go for it. But it really depends on who they got ranked higher at this point. You know, I still wouldn't mind getting a linebacker here, safety, and like we said, the offensive line for especially tackle. I would not mind getting a tackle here either. So, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I like Rucker.
He's a local kid.
Yeah, and he's a Long Island kid. He's
from
a Jet
Lindenhurst.
fan, so.
All right, Lindenhurst. Justin, that's our new adopted team here almost. So we'll be talking
No. Lyndhurst, New Jersey.
Okay.
Lindenhurst is Long Island, New York.
Right.
Okay, I was going to say, because when I heard Lindenhurst, I was like, okay,
big
Lindenhurst.
difference.
Oh, well, now take back what I said for our beloved Lindenhurst Golden Bears fans. We'll get to them, but certainly Lindenhurst.
Lindenhurst is actually a very good they got a very good high school football team.
Yes, they do. And actually, I was talking to my girlfriend's brother who went to Oceanside High School at the same exact time that Ruckert was at Lindenhurst. So he's got friends on the Oceanside football team, and they met in the state. They would meet in the state finals.
Is Lindenhurst in the 5 towns? Am I got that correct? Because I feel like I know Lindenhurst.
No, Lindenhurst is Suffolk County.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Next to like
I'm glad I asked.
Yeah, it's next to like Amityville, Copiague.
I know Amityville, of course. I know
a little further
the Suffolk County border.
A little further out.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so I'm glad I asked before I said something incriminating, but we are definitely having a lot of fun here on Sportswire Radio, sportnarium.com/player, and all of our platforms, including, of course, Frankly Speaking Sports on Facebook. Want to give a huge shout out to Larry Frank, of course. He has allowed us to be on his Facebook group. Also, Northeast Streaming Sports Channel, which is on Roku, Tobacco Road Sports Radio. I want to thank Desmond Johnson for that as well. And we're with 3 of my guys here on Sportswire Radio, recapping the NFL draft and much, much more. That is Justin Gianelli of the Baseball Manager, which you hear about 2 or 3 different times a week here. Of course, he's excited about those New York Mets. He's going to be there Sunday night, Citi Field. Obviously, Sunday night baseball, Mets Phillies, doesn't get any better than that. Also, Chris Pizzea of the New York Yankees, the red-hot New York Yankees. Remember, a week ago, everybody's like, the Yankees, I don't know. Now the Yankees they're doing pretty good in their own right. So, obviously, always like when both teams do. I want to take my father's approach. When it was always want to root for both teams. You always want to root for them both to do well. And, obviously, he's doing a great job for us with the Talking Rivals show, the Liftoff Jet show, and, of course, Billy McInerney, of course, does a great job. He's done some great work for the Elite Sports website in the past. Also, huge New York Rangers fan. Want to get into the NHL playoffs here in a little while, so a lot to cover. I'm the host of the Sports Report and the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. And if you like what you hear from us on Sportswire Radio, please give us a like on Facebook at Sportswire Radio. And 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, you can listen to all of our great content on sportnarium.com/play. We'll have some brand new shows throughout the weekend because I'm behind on some shows, so you get some new content from the Pinstripe Chronicles. You'll get a brand new show from the Walking Off podcast from Francisco Castro, our newest edition. He covers all things related to the minor leagues. We'll also get a Pipe Bomb Wrestling podcast, brand new show. Also, we'll be live here tomorrow night, 10 o'clock, with the Work in Progress show because, well, yours truly will be a guest on that, and we will be watching a Monday Night Raw from 1995. So I better get out my old WWF Full Metal cassette and figure out which wrestlers that I'm going to be watching and maybe see if I can get a cassette player out with that. So thank you to Piles for that. You can follow the Work in Progress guys on Instagram and Twitter at AWIPod. So thank you also to Piles. The Nebraska Dream is where you can follow him on Twitter. Also, Mayor of Canton, I'll be filling in for him. You catch him on Twitter. So all the great things that they're doing. I will do the Lyndhurst Golden Bears update toward the end of the show because I want to get to some things here. So I have a lot to say on that, a lot of plugs in with that, Coach Terry, and a lot to get into there. But I want to I kind of replace the St. Joseph's New York Golden Eagles for this week. We have no Brad Weiss, but we're going with Justin Gianelli's Lyndhurst Golden Bears. So we're going to keep it in the family. Golden names, we'll definitely keep all that here. But we're speaking all things related here to the world of sports. And John Gonzalez, because another update here on the NFL draft. And Cowboys took a kid. I like Jalen Tolbert in the third round. Any thoughts on Jalen Tolbert before I get a thought or two on some other sports for you guys? Any thought on that?
Pretty good receiver. I think he's a speed guy for Dallas, and they love their speed guys over there. And they need a replacement for. They lost two receivers, didn't they?
Mari Cooper's gone, and who else?
One of their reserve receivers is gone too. I can't remember his name.
Yes, yeah, I think you're right, Chris. Cedric Wilson.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So he'll probably take Wilson's spot. Yep.
Good pick.
Yeah, not a bad pick for them this late.
All right. I'm sure we'll bounce back and forth with the draft and some other things, but I want to go over very quickly into the NHL playoffs because the Rangers are in there, and I really haven't got a chance to talk too much hockey here, and I'd like to at least give Billy McInerney the floor on that, maybe riff on that. Obviously, Islanders obituary, if you want to do that, Devils obituary, get to a few other things here real quick, then we'll jump back in. Well, that's been a season. Listen, both teams ain't going anywhere, but we'll certainly maybe do a few minutes on that before we jump in. I want to get into baseball because there's a huge baseball story I really want to get into. That is Trevor Bauer. So I do want to get into that. I'll work in an NBA playoff thought or two at some point. But, I mean, Billy, break down the Rangers season and where we're going to be wind up playing. I know it looks like the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to be facing the playoffs next week. And give me your thoughts on how things are going to unfold and what we can expect from our Rangers here in the postseason.
Yeah, it's been finalized with the Penguins beating the Blue Jackets tonight. They'll be the Rangers' first-round opponents. The Rangers season went excellently, better than I could have expected, I think,
No question.
I did not have them top at 100 points. I did not. Sorry. Didn't have them finishing second in the division, I was thinking maybe they get the third division spot or one of the wild card spots. So to slip into that second division spot, is great. I think that they are, I think the Penguins are a great matchup for them. I think they can win,
I think if the Rangers were going to play Boston, I would say, you know what, Billy, that's a tough matchup. But I think of all the matchups, I think Pittsburgh's the team you're going to want to face the most. Am I missing something here?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. Washington is really hot right now, so I'm glad to avoid them in the first round. Certainly the Atlantic's I'm glad the Atlantic's not coming into our division at all because I don't want Boston on this side of the equation.
You got the two-time defending Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning. You've got Toronto, who's right literally behind, and then you got the Florida Panthers, who, oh, by the way, had the best season in the NHL, and that was with everything that happened with Joel Quenneville at the start of the season. Oh, by the way, they only had
Yeah.
the best record in the NHL.
And
Yeah.
are probably the best offensive team in the salary cap era.
Yeah, I mean they've scored what, like almost 4.25 goals
Yeah.
in the season.
In
Some
an
like
era where
ridiculous
goal
number.
scoring is just not that high, they have been scoring, 3-4 goals regularly. It's funny, people think, back like, 80s and 90s, 5-4, 6-5 games were common, it doesn't happen now.
Oh,
So
you'd
the
have
Panthers
even
do
like
something-
7-6 games in the 90s.
Yeah, you don't see those games anymore. So the Panthers doing what they're doing, and then at the deadline they added Claude Giroux. Just casually add one of the best forwards, in the league. So
For the past decade, a guy, by the way, who's averaged about a point a game for the last decade.
And is now maybe their fifth best player. They're loaded. The Lightning, obviously 2-time defending champs. The Hurricanes are, have been great all year. Their goaltending situation is finally.
I always
figured
felt
out.
that Carolina.
Yeah,
was,
but now they've run into issues. Frederik Andersen's hurt.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
don't know that he's going to be ready for the first round, but I don't think it's going to be that long term of an injury. And hopefully that they get by the first round. Then the Hurricanes might be in good shape. But
that was their
but
issue.
Freddie Andersen being hurt changes a lot.
It does.
If they're going to be playing Boston in the first round.
If Antti Raanta, gets through, stays healthy, he is a good goalie when he's healthy. He just can't stay healthy. If he can hold on, if he can stay healthy until Freddie Andersen's back, I think they'll be okay. I mean, then Carolina's a team that's never really had great goaltending. I still think trading.
Boy, all that money they spent on Bobrovsky, I mean, certainly worked out for them, right? I mean, all that money that was spent on that. I mean, just
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because Bobrovsky with the Panthers now. He's had a decent year this year, but I don't trust him anymore.
That's my point.
I don't. He's had a bit of a bounce back year this year to his credit, but he's had 2 brutal years with the Panthers.
And you know what? Well, and going back to your point though on the offense, and John Gonzalez has got a funny comment. Can someone go pick up the brute force? He's got a flat tire. No, he doesn't. He doesn't have a voice right now, John Gonzalez, because I was speaking with him on Instagram throughout the week, and I thought my voice was like full of horse. He was like. He couldn't even talk on Instagram. We usually do like a voice thing to communicate. He couldn't even do it. So the brute force right now, I mean, he's got like a flat voice. He's got he might need like a voice box at this point. Poor Brad. So obviously, you might want to message him and ask him for a voice box or two. But I'm looking at this Panthers lineup, and I've got like 10 guys with like 40 plus points or more. It's like I don't think I've seen this before. Like you said, in the salary cap era. I'm thinking the last time I saw this, and Chris would probably vouch for me on this, is like those early 90s Penguins teams maybe that had like that many players. I mean, it's really been that long. I'm trying to like rack my brain here. I mean, like they've really, I mean, it's like a who's who of players here. I mean, they were good a few years back when they faced the Islanders in the postseason, but they only had like 4 guys that did that. They've got like literally, I think it's like I'm counting almost like 3 lines deep of guys who can score either between 20 goals and 40 points. Billy, I mean, they're going to be interesting in the postseason to watch. I mean,
well, here's how good the Panthers are this year.
Talk to me.
One of the Rangers' most important players since trade deadline, Frank Vetrano.
Yep.
The Panthers gave him to them for basically nothing to make room for Claude Giroux, and it hasn't affected them at all. The Panthers are just absolutely loaded. Huberdeau and Barkov are up there with,
Did Huberdeau set the franchise record for points in a season? I feel like he did, right? 115, I think.
I think so, yeah. I don't think anybody the Panthers has ever come close to that number.
I think Burry one year had like 50-something goals. The one year he was healthy there, I remember, like in 2000, but that's really it.
I don't think he was anywhere near 115 points though. But
no, like 90. I think like in the 90s, and but and then you had Barkov was right there, and you had Reinhardt and all those guys. I mean, just amazing what they were all able to do there. And Giroux, like you pointed out, I think he had a point a game in the 20, he played 18, 19 games there, something like that.
Yeah.
And a little food for thought here in the Eastern Conference. According to FanDuel, that the Panthers are plus 550, which is the second favorite to win the Stanley Cup this year.
Oh, I don't like that then, because something tells me that means I want to avoid
only behind Colorado, who's plus 320. For a local standpoint, we got the Rangers sitting at plus 1,600, which is tied with the Edmonton Oilers. who are going to go in for a rough and tumble series against the LA Kings in the Western Conference.
And Dustin Brown obviously is retiring after.
Yeah,
the-
one final tour. I mean, a captain of 2 championship teams, obviously still an integral part as a veteran leader. On probably the biggest surprise in the NHL this year was the bounce back of the Los Angeles Kings, and I don't think you could give. I don't think there's
Minnesota,
enough.
you didn't think was a surprise on how they ended up with their season?
Who was that?
Minnesota.
No,
Not
because
really.
Minnesota's always been a team that's hung around the playoffs, and LA has been real bad over the last couple of years. But I don't think enough credit could be given to Todd McClellan for really.
I mean, did anybody see them with 90
really
points?
rebounding that LA franchise, and you know they're gonna have they're gonna have their hands full against Edmonton. With especially with the dynamic duo
McDavid and
of McDavid and
Draisaitl. What they have, like
Draisaitl.
240 points combined? Or
Yeah,
something
I
like
mean
ridiculous like that?
they're hands down the best duo in hockey, and they have been for years. And you know what? To me, it's long overdue that this team makes a run at the Stanley Cup, and I don't see why they can't. I don't see why they can't come out of the West. The only question is that their goaltending is not all that great. That could provide an issue going forward, but they can score with anybody. They really can. I mean, they've been absolutely filthy this year.
I feel like there's a few teams, before I get to Chris, we could get a thought or two, and we'll move on to other things. I kind of feel like that there's a few teams in this postseason, especially in the West. I feel like the pressure's got to be on them. Calgary, Edmonton, certainly Colorado. I mean, to me, those are the teams I'm looking at right now that I feel like, and obviously in the East, Toronto's always got the pressure, right? Because Toronto never wins in the first round. But I feel like those teams, exactly, and I feel like specifically those teams, though, in the West, that those Calgary, Colorado, and Edmonton, I feel like you almost like have to, if you don't win at the West, you almost have to go deep. I mean, am I missing something here, guys? Anybody disagree with that?
Yeah, they're the clear 3 best teams in the Western Conference. I'd be very surprised if one of them falls out early. I mean, obviously, Calgary and Edmonton would have to face each other in the second round, should both of them win their series. But you're not exactly expiring. I don't feel too comfortable with the 2 wild cards this year. You get Nashville and Dallas out of the Central. You got 5 Central teams this year. They're probably going to be easy outs for the Calgary and Colorado to just wipe the floor with. But I think out of the 3, Edmonton's got the toughest series because who's the goaltender that's been playing most? I know Jonathan Quick gets sparing minutes now, but I think Cal Peterson's his name. LA's gotten good duo goaltending this year, and they've gotten good key contributors scoring. Adrian Kempe's had a really solid year. Obviously, Anze Kopitar has returned to form. You know, we've seen like a vintage throwback year. So, I mean, out of those 3, Edmonton really Edmonton really has the toughest matchup in the first round.
And I see here Matt Corral to the Panthers at 94. Thank you, Chris, for that. So finally, he's picked. And just real quick, I want to run through some of the NHL stat leaders. Obviously, McDavid going into action here, 123 points, 44 goals, 79 assists. Jonathan Huberdeau, 115 points, tied with Johnny Gaudreau. Obviously, local boy here, Johnny Gaudreau. Draisaitl's right there, 110 points. And Austin Matthews scores 60 goals this year. 60 goals to me is always like.
I think it's gonna be a real fun, interesting debate on who wins the Hart Trophy this year, whether it's McDavid or Austin Matthews. I think both can make a massive case for the Hart Trophy this year.
That's a good one here. I'm looking at even some guys that had bounce back years. Matt Duchene, 43 goals. What a bounce back year he had. I mean, I'm looking at even guys like Victor Hedman, 84 points as a D-man. I mean, there was a lot of guys here that had some really big years. I mean, Chris, you have a thought or two as the NHL season, the regular season concludes? Anything in the playoffs? Anything on your mind that comes to fruition?
Well, you know what? With the playoffs, you could see, like, I think you said it right. With some of these teams in the West, Calgary, Colorado, Edmonton, you know, it's teams that have been in the playoffs the last couple of years, but have fizzled out a little sooner than they should have, especially Colorado. Colorado's been like one of the best teams in the whole league the past, 3-4 years.
Yeah.
And
they've always disappointed in the postseason.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of pressure on them. And like you said, Toronto, of course, Toronto's Toronto. I mean, Toronto's like the biggest team in Canada next to obviously Montreal.
Yeah.
And they haven't won a cup since 60
7.
67. They draw Tampa in round 1 this year. So
And they haven't won a postseason.
I think Toronto's a one and done.
Yeah, I agree.
Probably, yeah, right. I mean,
I don't see how they beat Tampa in the playoffs. And
it couldn't happen to a better player, obviously. So I'm okay with Toronto.
But you know what? And you know what? Let's give a ton of credit to as Tom, you were running down some of the stats. Let's give a lot of credit to Steven Stamkos and what he's gone through with the injuries.
103 points. Yeah,
103 points. I mean, he has certainly not lost a step, and he has had a ton of injuries. And missing, was it last year or 2 years ago? He missed one of the cup runs.
Yep.
Because of injury.
I think that was the COVID bubble year. I'm pretty sure it was the COVID bubble year.
Maybe he missed both. But you know what?
Let me bring it up now.
Yeah.
The COVID bubble year. Remember
you know what? I think that was the year he was out.
Yep.
2 years ago when they won the first of the 2 cups. And well, I mean, he came back to form, and that's just so huge for Tampa Bay. Not sure if Kucherov healthy? Because I know he's always sitting on their long-term IR.
Kucherov, yeah, he had like 4 assists the other day.
Okay, I mean that's.
I had a feeling we were gonna talk hockey because I was looking at some scores the other day, and I saw Kucherov had like 4 assists, and Stamkos had like 2 goals and 3 assists the other day, and I'm looking at some of these stats here. I mean, listen, Calgary's got to have the pressure on them because I'm looking at Gaudreau. I know plus minus people tell me all the time, it doesn't matter, but I mean, Gaudreau's got a plus 65. Kachuk's got a plus 58. I mean, those are numbers like I haven't seen like in a long, long time.
The top 3 leaders are all Flames. Elias Lindholm is second at plus 62. I mean, the top 3 players in plus minus are all Flames.
I'm seeing that right here. Lindholm's got 40.
You got to think that Calgary's up there with the most pressure. I mean, it's about time. They had that one Stanley Cup run
in 2004
when they lost to the Hurricanes. Obviously, we know that they won the championship back in 1989, but this is not a franchise that's really gone deep into the postseason, and they need to get there this year. I think for them, minimum conference final. Honestly, minimum conference final.
Yeah, I kind of agree because you know what, that division has been weak the last couple of years.
Yeah, they have to come out of the division.
But I can't guarantee. But I also can't guarantee you that they beat Edmonton. And I'll tell you one thing. You talk about those old school 7-6 scores. We get Calgary and Edmonton in the second round. You'll see 7-6 every night.
Calgary has a great defensive team. I mean, that's Daryl Sutter's entire identity. But
you know what? Anytime they put. I think if you look up the scores this year between Edmonton and Calgary, they played some high-scoring games.
We're looking at that up here.
I'll get that for you.
Okay, you got 9-5, 5-3, 5-2, 3-1. Yeah, some high-scoring games.
One out of the ordinary that was a little low-scoring.
Yeah.
9-5. I mean, that certainly sounds fun.
Oh my God, that's old-school hockey right there.
Yeah, that's old.
9 goals.
That's Chris will appreciate this. This reminds me as a little kid playing Sega
Canadians dropped 10 tonight.
NHL 95 or was NHL like 96.
Those are some great games.
I think I still have the booklet somewhere. I know I have it. I actually have. I know I have it. I actually have the booklet. I think I saved the booklet.
And kids now have no idea what you're talking about by saying booklet.
Well,
there's no instruction booklets anymore.
Not anymore.
No. What they actually used to do for the Sega games was they would give you a big pullout of it. Like it was almost like a huge fold out of the actual who was on the cover. Now, when you play on Xbox, those who play on Xbox, you just get the game and you load it into your Xbox One. It just saves on there. I'm pretty sure I got actually NHL 95 because I remember getting it as a gift, and it was the poster,
right?
Yeah,
I remember.
Yeah,
that.
No joke. No joke. I bought MLB 22 the show today. The only thing that came in the sleeve was a voucher for 5,000 stubs. That's it.
Yeah.
So I
You
mean,
got the
and I
disc, right?
remember because the first hockey game I got was NHL 2001
I played that.
with
Yeah.
Owen Nolan on the cover.
Yeah, I
And
remember.
you had that big you had that pamphlet
That's a name.
inside the disc.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, those were the days. I remember playing it on PlayStation 2, PlayStation and PlayStation.
I played that
2.
on the one PlayStation 1. I didn't have
Okay.
PS2 yet.
Okay, yeah, those were certainly the days here. I know people are like, well, what about the NHL? I just want to run over here, thanks to the crack staff here, some NHL projected playoff matchups here for those that are obviously listening to this, and they're looking forward to some games of note here. So obviously, we're looking at when it comes to the NHL playoffs and some of those games. We're looking at Edmonton, Los Angeles, very very intriguing matchup here. I mean, that's going to be again like we talked about here, a lot on the line here, and.
Yeah.
Certainly, both teams, you think about Kings are a dangerous team. Obviously, Edmonton, a lot on the line here. We have Tampa Bay here, who's clinched the 3rd seed, and they'll also be playing the Toronto Maple Leafs, the aforementioned Toronto Maple Leafs. We're going to see the Boston Bruins and the Carolina Hurricane. That's another matchup, a very intriguing matchup. We've got also the Rangers here that are going to face off with the aforementioned Pittsburgh Penguins. So we have a number of different matchups here that I'd obviously be very excited for. And then we have the Florida Panthers and the Washington Capitals. There's some really, really exciting matchups here over in the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. Oh, by the way, the Minnesota Wild are going to face up with the St. Louis Blues. So that looks like a intriguing matchup.
That could be a sneaky good matchup.
Yeah. I kind of like. I'm not going to make a full on prediction, but I feel like I kind of like St. Louis in that matchup. If I'm Colorado, I want Minnesota to win because I think St. Louis provides a very very tough second round matchup for the Colorado Avalanche, and I think they are they're like the Oilers and Flames, minimum conference finals. Obviously, we know one of the 2 Pacific Division teams aren't going to get there. So, big pressure on Jared Bednar and those in Colorado because they've gone too short.
If Colorado doesn't get to at least the finals, you got to think Bednar gets fired.
Oh, absolutely.
The conference final.
Yeah, I think at least to the conference finals.
I agree. I think the clock is really ticking on him.
And that's a shame. I think he's actually a good coach, but they have to get the job done in the playoffs.
But at some point, you got to get over the top. At some point, it's not just about being a solid coach; it's about actually getting over the top. And this is a franchise with championship aspirations to win the Stanley Cup, and they haven't even gotten.
And I have a comment here. I actually, for regularly scheduled programming, a very important comment. So I got to get into it here. And that is, of course, the aforementioned brute force Brad Weiss. He is in the house, and he is apparently, he may be without a voice, but he's certainly not without a keyboard. And he says here, "You missing me yet, John? Sorry couldn't be there tonight. Just got home from coaching. Went 1-2. All right, 1-2 is better than 0-3. But my voice is getting better. Overall, very happy with the Jets draft. They did an amazing job. And LFGM, combined no-hitter, let's go." John Gonzalez, would you like to respond now that the brute force Brad Weiss has interrupted here our regularly scheduled programming and has let us know that he's very happy with the Jets draft and they did an amazing job, and he's happy about the Mets and the no-hitters. So, John Gonzalez, would you like to respond? I'm sure we'll hear from you at some point. The
Brad, take care of your voice. We'll hope to see you next Friday.
Is there anything else, Brad, that you would like to contribute here before we maybe move on here and go into some other things? Because I'm going to go into baseball in a second because I want to get to the Trevor Bauer news here because I want to definitely touch upon that here while we have some people tuned in. So, the brute force, I'll give you a minute or two, obviously, but we hope you feel better. And obviously, if you like what you hear from the brute force, do give him a follow on Instagram at bweiss20, Twitter bradweiss20, also Snapchat. Brad, you're like the only person that still uses Snapchat. Like, I'm on Snapchat. Like, I haven't even used Snapchat like in 3 years, but he is on Snapchat. I believe it's bweiss20. Also Facebook at Bradley Weiss, and make sure you give him a follow, a friend request, whatever it might be. So those are the things and why you want to see the brute force Brad Weiss. So obviously we miss you, bro. get well. I know May is a very big time of the year if you were coaching in basketball. So if you want to tune in and comment, listen, we're going to be here for at least another hour or so. So definitely do that. But I want to get to baseball because, I mean, Yankees and Mets, I'll definitely jump back into for sure. I'm glad we got to talk some hockey. Always nice to talk hockey. I've kind of missed talking hockey with some of the guys here. But Major League Baseball. Oh, by the way, Trevor Bauer gets a 2-year suspension. I mean, 324 games, if I'm not mistaken, was handed down here today. And I want to go with Chris first, and I'll work my way around the other way this time with Justin and Billy. I mean, I'm sure the Talking Rivals on Monday, when we hear that on sportnarium.com/player, and of course on the Talking Rivals website, make sure everybody goes so gives them a follow on YouTube at Talking Rivals. Also, catch them here on Roku, and John Gonzalez and also others can catch them on the Sports Authority where the guys share the link for the show also. But, I mean, walk me through your impressions here, this Trevor Bauer suspension. I know Justin's going to have some controversial thoughts here maybe on this, but what did you make of this? Did you expect it? And talk to me about your thoughts here in the Trevor Bauer suspension.
Well, I mean, I'm happy there's a resolution because the guy hasn't pitched in over a year or whatever it is, about a year.
Right.
There must be a lot of really, really bad evidence against him for him to get a 2-year suspension. I'm sure he's going to fight it, but we've never seen this before, right? Someone getting suspended for 2 years. It's incredible. I mean, the evidence must be horrible against him. And if it is, then good. And even after those 2 years are up, whatever his age is, I don't think he's going to, I don't think teams are going to want him back. But even if he tries to make a comeback, you know what? The team should turn their backs on him and not sign him. And we've seen, I hate to bring up another league do this, but
I knew where you're going with this. Go ahead.
They've done that to somebody. So obviously it could be done. And this could be done for a really good reason. You know what? This guy should not be pitching at all in Major League Baseball again, for what he did. I don't know what happened.
Sure.
I don't think anybody really knows, but obviously it must be really bad for him to get suspended 2 years. I mean, I think it's unprecedented to hear that. When I first heard it, I was in shock, for 2 years. So you know what? Good riddance. Hopefully we never see this guy again.
No question about that. And unfortunately, I'm trying to lighten the mood up. We'll get back to this here in a second. But John Gonzalez and Brad Weiss have decided that they're going to use our platform to go back and forth with each other. So let me go with John Gonzalez first. He says, Bradley Weiss, okay, Brute, I'm going to let you slide for tonight. This means I have to give you double harassment next week. I mean, I'm not condoning Trevor Bauer-like actions here, John Gonzalez. I'm only goofing. But Brad Weiss here says, my tires are doing fine, John. If I need a new car, I'm sure you can get me one in Detroit because you're the star there. Solid draft for your Lions. Steelers, though, question mark. So certainly those guys, that could be a wrestling ring near you. But speaking of rings that we might only see, Mr. Trevor Bauer, near you, I mean, Justin Gianelli, I know for the baseball banter, next show, we're going to be hearing some banter for sure, Mr. Trevor Bauer. But, I mean, what do you make of this? Because certainly he's no Jack Bauer, to say the least. I mean, what do you make of all this here in the 2-year suspension? And walk me through your thoughts and more.
I mean, this is everything that's been reported is just completely despicable. I mean, from what – and now, like Billy posted in our chat here, a third woman told the Washington Post that Trevor did similar things. So now you have multiple accusers coming forward, and I know that the Pasadena Police Department dismissed all this. I wonder if they do reopen this at some point, because clearly what we're seeing is something really disturbing and really disgusting. And like Chris said, to piggyback off that, I mean, I just don't know how you could see him pitch in the major leagues again. But, because you think about it, he's in the second year of a 3-year deal with the LA Dodgers, and it was a record-setting deal at the time.
Remember the Mets were talking about him? I remember I was on the Sports Report, and Rob Maraska was like, we got to get him. I remember Rob Maraska telling me, we got to get Trevor Bauer. We don't get him. we're not gonna win anything. I remember listening
And
to
you
Bruce
know what?
Boss, we gotta
The
get
the,
him.
Me- the Mets
Dodge
might have
that
dodged,
bullet.
the Mets might have dodged the
I'm
biggest
glad I
bullet.
was the only one that said don't get him. I know I said it. I swear up and down. I'm like, I don't know. You sure, guys? I was like, I remember saying it.
You know what? And you know what? I at the time was an advocate for wanting him, but I also
Okay.
knew that he had his own little baggage because he's always come off as this really standoffish person where he just acts like a jerk and stuff. And I was like, you know what? When he went to the Dodgers, I was like, you know what? Fine, you can have him. I was not upset about it. And now with this going on, it just really just exemplifies how disgusting of a human being he is. And, he is the type of person that should never step on a baseball field again. And again, like I said, this suspension, and I know he's appealing and he's been vehemently denying. You know what? Take the L for one day, shut your mouth, and you know what? And then, figure this appeal out quietly. But I feel like they're still going to come to a resolution very quickly, and he's going to be gone for a long time. And you know what? This suspension takes him through the end of the 2023 season, and I think it might leak into the 2024 season if the suspension adds up properly. And
Right.
look, that takes it. The end of the 2023 season is the end of his Dodger contract. He will be 33 in January of 2024, and I just can't see any team taking a chance on him, having barely pitched in 3 years. And he really wasn't all that great last year for the Dodgers anyway. Like, his numbers look okay, but I just never felt like he was all that great. And I never felt like he was going to live up to that contract. And now this suspension at least helps the Dodgers get out of paying him this ridiculous contract, because they've been paying him for the 99 games of administrative leave that he's been on. Now the suspension kicks in, but they can now alleviate themselves of that money. And guess what? Eventually we could talk about the on the field stuff. Do you know how much that's going to help the Dodgers add more talent?
$30 million, right?
Yeah.
The rich get richer, right? The rich get
Guess
richer.
what? Guess what? Trade deadline. Who's the biggest name on the market? He's coming to LA. Let's just put it that way.
Yep.
Because that money is
Whoever
going
it
to be
is.
freed up and off their books, and they're going to be able to either keep Trey Turner and pay him, or go out there and get another big fish in the trade deadline or free agency. I mean, just think about, because you know what? I'm sick of this negativity, and I'm sick of the disgustingness. It's like it's so hard to talk about, this disgusting, despicable human being, that all I want to do is, my thoughts are certainly with the victims.
Sure,
because
absolutely.
they've been treated horribly,
Horrendous.
and it's just despicable and disgusting in every negative adjective you could think of. But I want to think of the Dodger aspect of this and how much this could really help them going forward.
Oh, it's going to certainly help them, undoubtedly. And the brute force Brad Weiss is with us. He says, now he's addressing, I think, what I said from a couple of years ago. And he says, best Mets moves not to happen in recent time: Wilmer Flores and Trevor Bauer. Thank God he didn't sign with the Mets. The brute force, I know I said that. I'm pretty sure I said that on a show. I don't remember if you were with us at the time, but I know I said that, at least with an Ernest Dove and a Rob Maraska. We'll have to get to the tape on that. And John Gonzalez has, I think, what I think would sum up for most people: Bauer is a punk. Just ban him for life. He's another John Rocker. See, I think he's worse than Rocker, and I'm not condoning
much
what
worse than
Rocker did
Rocker.
either. But I mean, Rocker just said dumb things. I mean, Bauer did things to hurt people. So obviously,
Rocker was just a genuine D-bag, and this guy is trash.
this guy's listen. The words we couldn't say on here, and obviously Billy had the story here. There was a Post article on it. Third woman accuses Dodgers Trevor Bauer of sexual assault. I mean, Billy. I mean, what do you think? I'm sure it's going to be no different than what most people are going to think. But I still give you the floor when it comes to Trevor Bauer and this whole thing that has happened to him.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be any different than anyone else said. Good riddance. you don't, this is a privilege. Playing this game,
Absolutely.
it's a privilege. You can't be a complete monster, which is what Trevor Bauer is, and also make millions of dollars playing a kid's game. It's just not. It's not something that can be tolerated and accepted. So, I do not. Credit to Rob Manfred for actually stepping up and issuing a lengthy suspension.
He did something good, I guess, for the first time, right?
I think, certainly, I think everyone kind of knows, it's a huge suspension, the end of his contract. I'm sure everyone knows that the league doesn't plan on signing it. No one plans on signing him back. So, I certainly, look, the fact that nobody who knows Trevor Bauer said word one about this doesn't sound like him. This seems unrealistic. Guys know who the creeps are, right?
Yep.
So that nobody said this doesn't really make sense given, his personality. I think that speaks a lot that everyone in the Dodgers pretty much just wanted him gone the second this came forward. I know there's not criminal charges being pressed. Like Justin said, I would not be surprised if that changes, especially this new woman who came forward, met him actually in Columbus when he was playing in AAA. So a whole other jurisdiction now. Now instead of California, it's in Ohio's jurisdiction. So, certainly his legal troubles might not be over, but I certainly hope we never see this guy on a major league mound again, and I don't think too many people other than him probably disagree with us on that.
Yeah, I don't think if I'm a team, especially with all the social media out there, that I would really want to take a chance on him. So, I mean, whether by some miracle in his standpoint that he's proven to be vindicated, you can't take a chance on something like this. Just the PR would just be way too much. And, unfortunately, this is just something we have to talk about yet again here in sports. And again, there's no tolerance for this, no place for that.
No.
Certainly, I mean,
absolutely not.
Look, we saw it with the Mets, and we saw with Mickey Callaway there was a problem with this, and this is even worse with what Trevor Bauer did, undoubtedly. But these are things that have no place in not just in the Major League Baseball clubhouse for a player, but in society. And I think, Billy, you said it best. I mean, it's a privilege to be a professional athlete, right? I mean, I speak with professional wrestlers all the time here live on the station, right? And to imagine them doing that, guys we just had on this earlier here, or in, with wrestling with WWE guys, I could never imagine that being, every day we speak with different people here on this station. Could never imagine it here. And I'll get to baseball in a second here, but Jets here give us the pick here, Justin, on for our New York Football Jets.
Yep, with the 101st pick in the NFL draft, the New York Jets select tight end Jeremy Ruckert, Ohio State, Lindenhurst, New York product.
Boy, I'm glad Lindenhurst.
And look, and you know what? I was saying this an hour ago that this is what they should do at 101. And I guess Joe Douglas got my text message.
And John Gonzalez is trying to, he says, I called it, give me credit. So something tells me that John Gonzalez had a phone call. Maybe there was a phone call placed in here and said, we gotta pick Ruckert. We gotta make sure we get another tight end. I don't know, but I'm sure somebody's gonna certainly take credit for that. John Gonzalez is. So Jets made another move, another depth move, again, getting the ingredients to cook the meal. So Jets have obviously done that here, and I'm sure we'll get more into that. But I want to go into back into baseball. I want to get into the and John Gonzalez, as I told you. So yeah, I guess you did, John. Clearly, you know something that none of us did, and that's why you're our Adam Schefter of Sportswire Radio. But I want to go back to baseball because I want to get to the Yankees. We spoke about the Mets, and everybody's talked about the Mets here in New York and throughout the country. But the Yankees, to me, right now, I think are playing just as well and maybe if not better. And Chris, give me the Yankee story because I feel like, again, last week and maybe earlier, Yankee fans were certainly, having their feelings aired out, but it seems like Yankees are back on track going into tonight's play.
Yeah, I think so. The first couple of weeks, Yankees always kind of start off slow. But the last, what is it? If they win tonight, it'll be 7 straight. And it's a rain delay now in the ninth inning. They're up 12-2. So I would give them the win tonight.
They'll win that one. They'll win that one.
Yeah, I think so. I think they'll gut it out. But this will be 7 straight wins for them. Again, it wasn't exactly against tough competition, right? We beat Baltimore. We're beating Kansas City now. So beat Cleveland. So
The Guardians. You get and John Sterling's still getting used to calling them the Guardians. That was all the talk of the
Yeah, I
radio.
know.
There was a lot. Yeah, there was a lot of Indian calling in that.
Yeah.
in that,
I
in that
just-
series.
that one's going to be hard. Like Washington was tough with the Redskins, calling them the Washington football team. I'm never going to call them the Commanders. I'm just going to keep calling them Washington. So I just got used to it. But the Yankees, yeah, they're rolling, and you know what? Their pitching has been good all year, which is great. The big thing is just got to stay healthy at this point, and their offense, they were going to hit. I think all year they're going to be a streaky offensive team. The pitching is going to keep them in the game. And
I was still thinking. I was speaking with somebody about this yesterday. The weather has not been great, and we know that. Listen, it's going to get warmer here eventually. It's going to get warmer in a couple weeks, and I think guys like Stanton and even Rizzo and LeMahieu, these guys, Judge, are all going to benefit from that because the ball is going to travel more and they're going to get more comfortable. I mean, it's tough to hit. I know everybody's got to hit in it, but I mean, it's tough to hit in 45-degree weather.
Rizzo hit another one tonight. I think he's up to 9 home runs. I mean, he's been great so far. So we can't complain. I thought Judge maybe the first couple of weeks, the contract issue, I thought that was probably on his mind. So maybe but I think that's going to be fine now until I think right around the All-Star break, he'll start to, because now the reporters will start asking him questions about it again, because the trade deadline is getting closer, so I'm sure it'll come up again. But I think right now, now you just got to one game at a time. Don't even worry about, the contract. Don't worry about nothing. It's a long season. And right now, what we see with the Yankees, starting pitching is very good. Bullpen is very good. And the offense, like I said.
That lineup, I got to tell you, I mean, that lineup to me, and I've said it from the beginning, that lineup, I mean, it should be good. I mean, you have Judge and
I think it's going to be a streaky offense. You're going to have a couple of weeks where they're, scoring the 7-8 runs, hitting a bunch of home runs. And then you're going to get a couple of games in a row where they don't hit because, again, there's still a home run and nothing offense, So we'll see.
And John Gonzalez chimes in here and says, just call the Yankees the Highlanders. Isn't that what the Yankees were called like back in like 1905 or something like that?
That was their original name, yeah.
I figured that. And John Gonzalez chimes in here, Gallo is a strikeout machine. Yeah, I mean, that's,
half the team.
Yeah, I mean,
or half the league.
That's baseball. But looking up and down the lineup here, going into action here, Rizzo had 8 home runs going into today's play. Judge, 5 home runs. Stanton hit his 350th home run earlier this week. One of the fastest, I think, ever to hit 350 home runs.
The quickest.
Well, we're all getting old if Stanton's got 350 home runs. So that's
and he hit another one tonight. Judge, and Judge, Rizzo, and Torres hit a home run tonight.
The only thing I'm concerned about with the Yankees, and it's funny, kind of Falefa, again, everybody was down on him 2 weeks ago, but I see him and his numbers are actually pretty good right now. The only thing that concerns me with the Yankees, and I'll get some of the guys' thoughts in here, is catching. Is that I think to me, that's really where I look at it. And again, Sanchez, we've debated that up and down here the past couple of years. But that's the only spot I really look at the Yankees.
With him not being
here. I mean, but that's the only spot that I look at the Yankees and I say, you know what? That's where I'd be a little bit maybe concerned offensively. Am I wrong here?
Yeah, I don't think either him. I don't think Higgy or Trevino is going to hit well. And I'm not expecting them to hit more than what they are now. As long as they're good defensively behind the plate and, calling a good game, that's all I'm worried about with a catcher. Because look at the rest of the lineup. You could take a minus from the catchers offensively. As long as they're good defensively, you know what? Who cares?
Well, I think,
I'm not really worried about them.
To me, Judge, Stanton, and Rizzo, safe to say, are going to give me 100 home runs. So between those 3 guys, I'm going to take the law of logics and be safe and go with 100-plus home runs. That means
add in James, what's his name, Donaldson, too.
Yeah, I think he'll give me 20, 25, right? I would assume like that. Gallo, for what he's worth, is going to give me, I'm assuming, 30, right? I want to get 30 out of Gallo. I mean,
Yeah, he'll give you
Should be
200
able
Ks,
to.
but he'll give you 30.
yeah, he might hit 160, right? But he might give me 30 home runs. I'm assuming LeMayeu's going to give me, if he's back to norm, I'm assuming like 20.
20s,
You know,
yeah.
I'm looking at that. So at the end of the day, if those guys they're talking about it right there, add another 3. That's like what 160 home runs,
If
170
those guys do
home
their
runs.
job, it won't matter what the catches do. And so I'm not that concerned with what Trevino or Higgy's going to hit this year. If they hit 200, whatever, they give you an occasional home run or whatever.
All right.
As long as they're good defensively, and right now they're both very good defensively. So that's all I'm really concerned about.
For Justin and Billy, as I see some people are tuned in, because people, I guess, like us going back to baseball, because we didn't do baseball last week on the show, Chris, by the way. We didn't do any baseball because it was basically NBA playoffs. We recapped the entire playoffs, and we went into the NFL draft because we had people left and right in the draft. So I'm happy to be back with baseball. Always been a baseball guy. But for Justin and Billy, I mean, any thoughts on the Yankees? And I want to get to a few other things across the league before I move on.
Well, when everybody was going haywire and panicking about the Yankees getting off to that little slow start, I kept saying, look, they're fine. They're going to sleepwalk their way to 90-plus wins. They'll be just fine. Now, the only little bit of caution that I will say is let's see them against some better teams. Now, but they are doing what a great team should do, and that's beat up on the bad opponents. Now, it didn't look that way early on. You lost 2 out of 3 to the Orioles, and then you had that miserable third game of the series against Detroit where you couldn't complete the sweep. But that they now won. They've won 6 in a row. They're going to win tonight, obviously, against the Royals. But they're doing what great teams need to do, and that's beat up on the bad teams. I mean, you look at what the Mets did against the Diamondbacks. They won 4 out of 6. And that's what you have to do. And I mean, think about it. The Mets and Yankees have identical records essentially, but the Mets haven't had a winning streak longer than 3 games. The Mets have been more consistent, but the Yankees have been on fire of late. They've been more of the streaky baseball team. So,
but that's what they were last year, guys. If you remember, they were 11-17. They got red hot. Then they had the stretch in July and August where I think it was 24 out of 30 they won, and then they kind of came back to earth. That's what they kind of were last year. I mean, they were very streaky last year. Am I wrong on that?
No, you're not.
I don't think you're wrong at all. It's just it'll be how they fare against we'll see how they fare against the better teams. And they go to Toronto starting Monday, and then they're facing Texas, which has started to play some better baseball. We know that their lineup's going to score a ton of runs. Their pitching is just very, very questionable. And then you play Toronto again, and then you have the White Sox, who they've started out in a funk and they have a ton of injuries. I'm sure if you heard the last baseball banter, I kind of broke down all the injuries that the White Sox have gone through.
Well, the White Sox, I kind of feel like that if they don't have a strong start, I mean, I'm not going to say that Tony.
But you know what? I think they're going to sleepwalk their way through the AL Central because the AL Central just, really isn't all that this year.
No, it's
the Royals and Tigers. The Royals aren't that good. The Twins are going to be okay.
Yeah,
Cleveland's in a bad situation right now, and Detroit's not quite there yet. They're a young up and coming team with some really good talent. But Chicago should be able to sleepwalk their way through the American League Central. Only problem for me is they were my preseason pick to win the American League. And
I know you and John were very high on them. You
know what? I had the White Sox against the Dodgers in the World Series, and I can tell you one thing: I've seen a hell of a lot more from the Dodgers than I've seen from the White Sox. I mean, but then again, we all know the Dodgers are this absolute juggernaut.
Well, the Dodgers are the Dodgers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they'll be fine.
It's death taxes in the Dodgers in the National League, so that's just a no-brainer there. But for you, Billy, I mean, any thoughts on the Yankees before I get to maybe a few thoughts on the league? I got a couple of 1 or 2 questions I want to ask you guys before I move on. Any thoughts on the Yankees or just from general observations?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Justin. I thought they were better than they started. I'll certainly be very curious to see how the series up in Toronto goes. You know, if they take 2 or 3 there, if they kind of take a step back, you know, that's going to be a big thing. I mean, the nature of being a team that is built very heavily on power hitters is that you're going to be streaky. You know, the offense is going to come and go. It's just, I mean, it's just the way, you know, especially like, you know, Giancarlo Stanton. We've seen him go on runs where he'll hit a home run a day for a month.
Yep.
And we've seen him go on runs where he hits, you know, 100 for, you know. So, you know, the team is just they're going to be a streaky team all year. Certainly, if they get hot at the right time, they're going to make a lot of noise in October. But, you know,
boy, we got comments in here. Oh boy.
Here we go.
Just John Gonzalez says that's right with the Tigers, and Brad Weiss, the brute force, says relax with the Tigers. Come on, John Gonzalez. boy, that's I guess a little entree for next week's show.
Yeah, I got some feistiness in the comments.
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, he couldn't talk. Like I told John Gonzalez, the brute force, literally, he would need like a voice box. He would need what Kane used to use when he was in the ring, when he was in the WWF. They would have Kane come out. He would have the little voice box to talk. That's what the brute force, Brad Weiss, probably needs. I probably need to be his pallbearer and probably need to come out with the box. But, I mean, speaking of teams real quick, and I was reading an article in the New York Post before I went on the air here with you guys, and it got me thinking. I know it's still early. I know we're like 10% here, and Brad Weiss here said, I need Chris's whiteboard for tonight's show, Tom Bryce. Yeah, I guess so. Well, that's going to lead into what I'm about to say. That's going to lead into it, and John Gonzalez says never underestimate the brute force. Yes, I know that, John Gonzalez. But this is what it's going to lead into, and I know it's early, and I know we're only like, you know, a little more than 10% through with the season, but I was reading this article in the New York Post, and it got me thinking. I'm going to ask all three of you guys. You guys are all locked into baseball. What managers right now, if you were to say any right now, are on the hot seat? Because there was a couple I read. A couple of them I thought, yeah, no-brainer. And a couple of them I kind of had to think about it. So for you guys, and I'll go maybe Billy first, and I'll work my way around. Is there a few managers that you think right now might be on the hot seat?
Yeah, I've got one on my mind right now, Joe Girardi.
Okay.
I'll be surprised if he makes it through the end of the year at this point, to be honest. Managed on the hot
Billy
seat.
must have listened to my last episode.
Sorry.
I listened to it.
Hey, I talked about manager hot seat on that episode.
That's well, I read that.
So I'll throw some more thought. I'll sprinkle in some extra thoughts on it too once 30.
Well, we're gonna get to you. Don't you worry, Justin Gianelli. Don't you worry.
Yeah, I certainly do not think that you know, Joe Girardi on the hot seat. I kind of agree with Tom. I think Tony La Russa's seat could be getting a little warm.
I read the New York Post today, and his name came up, and I was like, yeah, you know, that's a good point.
I could also maybe see David Ross's seat getting a little hot with the Cubs there. You know, that division is weak. They might see that as winnable. I don't think Ross gets fired for the end of the year, but I could see them making a change in the offseason.
Well, John Gonzalez agrees with you about Joe Girardi. Yeah, John Gonzalez has said that in a number of shows. I know we'll get to Justin, but I want to get to Chris because I'm sure Talking Rivals will be speaking about a lot of this. I mean, is there a few managers other than a Joe Girardi? Because I think Joe Girardi is an obvious. I think we all know, looking at that team, the way they're constructed, with that owner, that management situation there, I think we all agree. But is there anybody else that you think might be on the hot seat right now that might be of mind?
I mean, out of the ones, definitely the ones we talked about, without a doubt, are on the hot seat because the White Sox should be taking over that division easily because it's not a strong division at all. And what about the Tigers manager? I think they were supposed to be better than what they are right now. I don't know if he's I don't know if he's on the hot seat, but right now they're in last place in the Central Division.
Yeah, no, crappy division.
Yeah, and that's a weak division outside of the
AJ Hinch, yeah.
Yeah.
They're paying him a lot of money,
you're
though.
expecting a little bit more. I mean, that's a quote-unquote World Series winning manager.
Yeah.
We know how they won the World Series, but that's a whole other argument. We don't need to get into that.
Yeah.
Here's one. I don't think he is, but is the Red Sox manager? I mean, they're 9-12 right now.
Alex Cora, I would probably say no.
But what if they're below 500 or around 500 at the All-Star break?
Then it starts to get warm, I think.
Yeah, but you know what?
I know.
You
I
know
don't.
what
think
though?
so,
They love Alex Cora so
do.
much. I don't think it's gonna happen.
I agree. I agree with you.
I don't think his seat's that warm.
Yeah, I don't think any. I don't think the Cubs. You guys said the Cubs. I don't think the Cubs because I don't think they were
They
expecting.
love
them
David
to-
Ross, and they know it's an over. They know it's a
I'm
roster
gonna throw
overkill.
one out there for you guys, and when
Don't steal my thunder.
So again, let Justin go first, and then we'll see which one he's got.
go for it, because I got
All right, so we all know that Joe Girardi's the obvious one because of the pressure. No, John Gonzalez is 100% wrong.
Leaves you in first
I
place,
think Joe
John.
Madden's in a good spot right now with the Angels. And plus, I also think they're a good team right now, and I think they're going to actually have a pretty good season. And hell, I think
John read the New York Post because that was in the New York Post today.
And you know what? Why can't they win one of the wild card spots? Actually,
they're in first place right now.
Actually, why can't they win the AL West right now? I'm not so sure about Houston. Seattle, I haven't really come to trust yet, but I think they're really talented. So
you were all right with Seattle in the
two
baseball
managers.
You thought they were okay.
Managers that are on the hot seat.
All right.
One is unfair, and one's going to be completely warranted. I'm going to start with the unfair one, and I hate that he's going to take the axe for it. That's David Bell in Cincinnati. He's going to take the fall for a roster that's completely been destructed to skin and bones.
Right.
And I can't completely fault him, but I think David Bell is going to be one of the managers to go. I think they'll give him the benefit of the doubt and let him just ride out the season.
Okay.
But I think he's going to be one of the managers on the hot seat. Number 2 is Chris Woodward. I think Chris Woodward's in a lot of trouble right now. And with Texas off to this slow start. Now, I know the expectations weren't quite that high.
But they spent money, though, in the offseason. They spent
a lot of money.
They spent money.
But they spent a lot of money. But aside from signing John Gray, they didn't do a hell of a lot to upgrade their pitching staff. And I think that is going to really come back to bite them. And in a tough AL West, they're putting in a really bad spot. And if you're telling me that the Rangers only win 70 to 75 games this year, I don't know how you could sell the fan base of bringing Chris Woodward back right now. I just think that he's been given enough rope. They've started their way back. And I just don't think that – and, well, look, I liked him as a Met. I like Chris Woodward a lot as a Met.
I thought he was a Met. Nice
I thought he was a good coach.
Yep.
I thought he was a good coach for the Dodgers as an assistant. I think he was the third base coach as well. I just think that you got to expect a little bit more from this Texas team, and I think Chris Woodward is certainly one that's worth watching.
So, thankfully, you didn't steal my thunder because the manager that I had, and again, it's kind of in the unfair category, and John Gonzalez has here, Reds are garbage like the Pirates, Orioles, and A's, and he says Derek Shelton with the Pirates is awful. Yeah, but that's a situation.
The Pirates are always going to be awful.
Right, with the exception of those few years with Clint Hurdle. But for me, the guy is Davey Martinez. To me, Davey Martinez is probably going to get the axe at the end of the season.
You know what? That I don't think so. I think that Mike Rizzo and ownership.
I don't know. Sherman was saying basically today that it's unfortunate, but they're going to probably lose 90 to 100 games, and he's going to.
They will. I think this close. They're still only a couple years removed from that World Series. I don't think that they're going to do that to Davey.
And the other name that I have out there, because he always has a short window. He always has. I'm going to get to John Gonzalez, his interesting one, but before I do that, he's always got a short window with teams, and I think you guys know I'm going to talk about Dusty Baker.
Yeah.
See, I wouldn't call it a hot seat. More so, like he might just retire.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
He always. What was it? The Nationals was 3 years. The Reds was 5. The Cubs, obviously, we know that ended up.
And plus, he's coming off a World Series appearance. They got to, Astros got to the World Series last year.
That gives him a little extra rope, I think. No.
Yeah, I think his seat is fairly cool. I think his seat's fairly cool right now.
So let me unveil the one that John Gonzalez has here, which is I kind of think is a fascinating one, but I don't think it's for different reasons. But it's Terry Francona. What do you guys all make of that?
Nah, I think he's safe because, again, expectations in Cleveland with a $30 million payroll.
But would he want to, for a different reason, would he want to leave on his own?
Oh, that's I can see that.
I would
Why?
if I were him. I mean,
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know
You know,
why he
but you know
think
what?
about it.
But you know, with the state of the Guardians franchise and what he's gone through health wise over the last couple of years, I was actually surprised he returned to the dugout this year. So I wouldn't be surprised if he hangs it up and retires after this year. But you know what? Some guys are born to coach. Some guys are born to manage, and they feel like, you know, he's going to be. He might be one of those guys. I hate to sound morbid. He's one of those guys that's basically going to drop dead in the dugout. I mean,
But you know
he's
what,
going to
though?
manage until he literally can't.
But you know what, though, to John's point about Francona, it's year 9 there now, going on year 10, right? So this would be his 10th season there. I mean, does it come a point that you say, you know what? Franchise is probably going to be rebuilding for a while. They've now decided they're a really small market, and I don't want to be here. You know, then it
You know
becomes
what?
like a
I think that franchise is
situation.
in a lot of flux right now. I believe the Dolans are selling the team, or at least they plan to. There is a lot of fluctuation going on with the Cleveland Guardians, so it does beg an interesting point. But remember, we would be talking about him like we'd be talking about Joe Madden had they had won the 2016 World Series. Because remember, they haven't won the title since 1948.
Yeah.
And I mean, you'd be some kind of hero if you win a championship with
Well,
Cleveland.
Cleveland,
So,
as we know, I mean, they've only got the one championship in like, what was it, 60-something years. LeBron,
yeah, and I
had.
know that Joe Madden and the Cubs eventually parted ways, and now he's obviously managing the Angels. But there's too much respect for Francona right now. I think he's going to leave on his own terms.
Well,
I think
And I do think it
go
might
ahead,
be after
Billy.
this
Jump
year.
in for me, Billy. Jump in, because I think it's an interesting topic.
Yeah, I think Justin's right. I don't think they'll fire him. I think if he leaves, it'll be on his own terms. I think it's a lot more likely that he says, you know what, it's time for something new. You know, I've been here for a decade. It's time for a new challenge. Time for new leadership here. I don't think they'll fire Francona. I actually have another name for you guys though, and this would be a like after the playoffs. It's definitely not warm now. If they don't at least get to the
I know where he's
NLCS,
going.
make a World Series appearance, does Craig Counsell get fired?
You know, I was thinking about him because that's another team in a division, right, where it's kind of been like middle of the pack, and the Brewers haven't quite been able to get over the finish line over the past. Now, obviously, Craig Counsell, he's certainly had a decorated run there, and obviously decorated player, but he makes a good point, Billy McInerney, that Craig Counsell in Milwaukee, they haven't really gone deep in the postseason. That hasn't been a great division these past several years.
Yeah, that's a fair one, especially with the pitching staff that they have this year. Coming off of last year, a lot of talk goes to Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff, and rightly so. But nobody talks about how good Freddie Peralta's been for the Brewers as their number 3. At some point, yeah. I mean, at some point, Milwaukee's got to have World Series expectations, and I know the National League's tough. I mean, the defending champions are the National League, the Atlanta Braves. The Dodgers won the 2020 World Series, and they're a juggernaut. The Giants, after losing 3 out of 4, they came back ablaze, and the Giants are going nowhere. The Giants are going to be really good this year. So the National League's very tough, but at some point, Milwaukee with that pitching has got to be able to get out of the National League at some point.
And the four straight trips to the postseason, he's 1-6 the last 3. I mean, that's a good one.
That's definitely one of the more interesting ones for sure.
How about Don Mattingly? In 7 seasons, I love Don Mattingly. In 7 seasons, he's been over 500 once. And that was in the COVID year.
And then in the
but
playoffs.
they've been such a garbage team for so long.
I know, but like at what point do you just like say, okay, we need a change, we need something. We gotta I love Mattingly. Trust me, I wouldn't even fire him if I hired him.
You know what though? This works twofold though with Don Mattingly. One, you could say, okay, well maybe now that Jeter's gone, they could make a change at the end of the year because
Well, that was in
There's
the
no
post
way.
today.
There's
That
no
was
way
the
on
post
earth
today
Derek
made,
Jeter
but-
was firing Don Mattingly.
I
Yeah,
would
no
have
shot.
obviously.
too.
But
Don Mattingly.
it just wouldn't have the heart to do that.
No, me either.
But two, you look at what they're building, and I know the National League East is tough. The Braves are the world champions. The Mets look like they could be very good. The Phillies, who the hell knows what the Phillies? They
80
don't
to 82
pitch
wins.
well, and
I
their
don't know.
defense.
The Phillies are like a classic softball beer league
Oh,
team.
and look at this. And guess what? Harper can't play the outfield because he's got either shoulder or an elbow injury. He's resigned to DH right now. That means Castellanos,
And
Herrera, and Schwarber is their outfield. That is a god-awful
Oh,
defensive
my God.
outfield.
That really is a soft.
And their infield's not much better.
No, it's
Boone,
not.
Hoskins.
No, their defense is terrible. So I don't know what to make of them. But the Marlins have this really good young pitching staff between Alcantara, Pablo Lopez, even Eliezer Hernandez. I mean, the Marlins, I think, are actually building something solid. And I would actually hate to see Don Mattingly go.
I think firing Mattingly would set them back. These guys are all real comfortable playing for it. That's a move you make
think
like
so.
2 years ago when you're starting to turn the corner. It's a harder move to make now that you're sort of showing signs that the corner has been turned. I mean, I've been saying all offseason they could be a sneaky wild card contender, the Marlins,
I think
Yeah,
they
I
will.
think you
they're
said
gonna hang
that. I
around
think
currently.
Justin said that, and I know a few other people said that. And so far, it looks like they could be a contender. And
I think they can hang around for sure.
They added pitching.
I get the logic, but that feels like a move you make before this year if you're getting rid of Mattingly, not after a year where you're showing signs of life and you have more talent coming through, and they're not losing games because they're losing focus or because they're playing.
Yeah, I don't think Mattingly's been the problem there. I think
You know what? You know what? The same could have been said in Los Angeles because they moved on with him after 8 years. Now, granted, they didn't really advance in the playoffs quite like the Dodgers have under Dave Roberts, but you could certainly say when he was let go from the Dodgers, he wasn't the problem, and they probably didn't have to make that move. And now you're looking at the stability and the success of Dave Roberts in LA. If I'm Miami, like Billy said, I think your biggest mistake with a building roster like this is getting rid of him.
Yeah, I think obviously if they play around 500 this year, that would be foolish. And the brute force Brad Weiss is giving us an update here that the first round is complete here because the Memphis Grizzlies, led by Ja Morant, have defeated the Minnesota Timberwolves 114-106 for the ESPN Friday night game here tonight. He says here the Wolves choke another double-digit lead. So round 2 is all set. So that means we have our Eastern Conference series coming up, our Western Conference series coming up. So certainly that was exciting. I was hoping for a 7th game myself personally. I was really counting we'd have at least 1 or 2. And this was the series I kind of thought was going to go 7. I thought Utah Dallas would go 7. And John Gonzalez chimes in here and says, I always believe that Mattingly one day will be managing the Yankees.
That might be the one thing that changed it. If they fire Boone and they work out the conversation with the Marlins.
The Yankees ain't firing Boone if they make the playoffs, though. I got to think. Right there.
They just gave him that new contract.
You know who the next manager is for the Yankees? Carlos Beltran. Because he's up in the booth now.
So you think he hangs in the yes booth until they end up getting rid of Boone and then they hire Beltran?
Unless he gets an offer before that, but that's my guess.
Yankees fans will go ballistic if they hire another analyst who's never managed before, though.
Not many Yankee fans like Aaron Boone, though. I'll say that.
We've heard that on this station with, of course, the Talking Rivals on Chris, and of course, the Pinstripe Chronicles, and obviously that whole gang there.
They'll tell you how much they like Aaron Boone.
They'll tell you, and they'll make sure they tag you on Facebook and Twitter. Click that link. I know, Bobby. I play the show every day. I listen to it over and over. Trust me, I know. But obviously, John Gonzalez does not agree. He says, no way, Chris. No Beltran, never. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you can never say never. Vince McMahon always says, never say never. And listen,
they like him enough to put him in the booth. Trust me. They like him.
Listen, I mean, Cameron Maybin's in the booth. I mean, I don't know. You never know out there. Listen, I've always wondered why David Cohn hasn't been a manager candidate. I mean, I think David Cohn would have been an interesting one.
He interviewed when Boone did, but for some reason they didn't take him.
Well,
Why?
I would have took David Cohn. I mean, the way I hear David Cohn, I think David Cohn is one of the most respected people in all of baseball.
I think they know Cohn is one of those no nonsense type of guys. Like,
he's a straight talker. Yeah,
he'll
I actually have an idea for who the next Yankees manager might be. As much as I hate to lose him, Jeremy Hefner. He's done some great work with the Mets pitching staff. They might try to pry him loose and bring him over.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the Yankees, though, would they go that route or would they just go the name
I don't know
route?
if they would go to the Mets and.
That's like Rangers and Islanders. Like Rangers and Islanders.
Yeah, I don't know if they would do
Well,
that.
Lindy Ruff's coaching the Devils now, so you know.
You got to remember that they're going to get somebody they don't care about paying money to, because Boone is not being paid a lot. They don't think the manager should be paid that much. I think that's the reason why Girardi got lost, was the money, and also Girardi was not afraid to say the truth or say they don't like a manager to.
Girardi had 10 years there. His record with the Phillies is kind of a blah. And John says here, Mattingly is a Yankee god. Yankee fans love the play. No, you know what's funny? Was it your show or was it the Pinstripe Chronicle show? Was it one of those shows I heard? And it was mentioned that when you think about all time beloved Yankees, Don Mattingly's actually he's in that discussion. Which when you think about it, right?
He's up there with Mickey Mantle and
right.
Oh,
and
he's
you think about it, his run, he was kind of like the Sandy Koufax of position players. He had 5 amazing years. And the rest of his career, he's hurt. But Yankee fans just idolized Don Mattingly because he's kind of in a way, before I maybe move on here to an NBA thought before we get closing thoughts, he's almost kind of like the connection to maybe the Yankee era of the 70s and 80s to today, because he's kind of in that window. Am I right, Chris? The 80s and into the 90s.
Yeah, he was there during the really rough, the rough times in the 80s, and he was there just as they started getting better in the early 90s.
He's kind of like that link to
yeah. Trust me, if you watch that Mattingly special that was on MLB Network, it just you could feel why Mattingly means so much to the Yankee fans.
And Mattingly is like Bobby Mercer, but I think
bigger than Bobby Mercer.
I was going to say
Mercer's nowhere near Mattingly.
I get and Brad's got
I love Bobby Mercer
prediction. I do want to get to that because I have a thought or two on that, but I mean, I think Mattingly. I get the prediction because they both didn't win a World Series, but Mattingly was one of the biggest players in all of baseball for 5 years. Yeah. Mercer was a good player, but he never quite lived up to those expectations. Mattingly for 5 years, I mean, the back of his baseball card is unreal. 53 doubles, 238 hits, 145 RBI.
Yeah, no, he won MVP.
Homers in 7 straight games. Yeah, no. Mattingly, had a 5-year run. That's to me, Sandy Koufax of position players. And the Brewforce Brad Weiss has early NBA series predictions. I mean,
and you got to remember too, with Mattingly, real quick, he never left. He was always here. Bobby Mercer was traded away, and then he came back.
Clubs, yeah.
Yeah, so
Bobby Mercer's career, I feel again, he had a good career, but I couldn't tell you superstar play.
He was the best player on horrible teams.
He's in the Bobby Bonds category, that Bobby Bonds, very good player, really, really good, but I don't know if I'd say superstar. And Bobby Mercer was huge in the 70s. He was the only good Yankee during the Horace Clark. Yeah. Well, Chris just brought that up. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that. I mean, but
in popularity, you can't. Nobody compares to Matt.
Mattingly was larger than life.
Is like Mickey Mantle.
If you're so for those who are card collectors. Don Mattingly, if I'm not mistaken, was on the Upper Deck commercial. Remember the Upper Deck commercials back in the day? That was Don Mattingly. He was in that. He was larger than life. I mean, Don Mattingly
he was one of the faces of baseball.
Exactly.
For 5-6 years.
Yeah, 5 or 6 years. I mean, to me, that means something. I don't know if he's ever makes the Hall of Fame, but in Yankee, in baseball lore, he's a big deal. So those are great things here for that. But before I get to closing thoughts and such, I did want to get to the NBA series predictions real quick from the Brew Force. I mean, Justin, I got to touch upon it here very quickly. You know where I'm going, and that's the Brooklyn Nets are obviously not a part of our NBA series predictions. And, it's just, unfortunate, but give me your thoughts on the obituary here for the Brooklyn Nets before we move on.
I will start by saying thank God the season's over. I mean, this this Nets season was a nightmare from start to finish. From the vaccine mandate, holding Kyrie Irving back from his choice not to get the vaccine, to him eventually becoming a part-time player, to the injuries. You lose Joe Harris. KD goes down and misses a bunch of games, and then they go on that horrendous 11-game losing streak in the 3-17 stretch. And then then you had to and then once KD comes back and Kyrie becomes full time, you're riding these guys 40 plus minutes a night because that's the situation that they are forced to put in. The only way that they were going to win games down the stretch was by those guys playing heavy minutes. And I hate to say it when guys missed all that time, but I think they ran out of gas at the end. They just did. I mean, if you're talking about,
did you see Blake Griffin huffing and puffing those last?
Yeah, I mean, here's a guy who was a DNP coach's decision for at least half the season.
I was gonna say,
and you know what? And Steve Nash continuously failed to make adjustments up until midway through Game 3 when they were losing, and I think that's really where the issue came.
It wasn't until they were down 15 in Game 3.
Exactly, and I really think that the Nets need a new coach, and they're not going to. They're going to stick with. Steve Nash for at least another year. But this roster needs a lot of retooling. Kyrie Irving needs to play most every game. He needs to play at least 75 games. Who the hell knows if that's going to happen? KD needs to stay healthy. As much as I love him, he's had some injuries over the last couple of years. That's really cost him some time. And then they got to build out some guys, some bigger players. I mean, they're a very small group between Patty Mills and Goran Dragic, Bruce Brown. There's some smaller players that can't really match up with some of these bigger wing teams, like a Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And they need more guys who are committed in the defensive glass. I mean, as much as Andre Drummond had a positive impact on his rebounding throughout the season, was as big of a failure as he was in the postseason, essentially reverted to a non-factor. And, and I think one of the things that you see is the Nets treated these veteran minimum guys very poorly, whether it's Blake Griffin. LaMarcus Aldridge couldn't crack the rotation. I don't know why. He doesn't play much defense, but he's got a deadly mid range.
You needed size in this series. Clearly,
yeah, exactly. Deadly mid range
rebounds. They were getting none of them. You clearly needed some size there.
15-foot mid range, when he could get a bit of space, is as automatic as it gets in the NBA. And they chose not to play him. The way they treated James Johnson. Now, look, I was screaming for James Johnson to go away, and thank God they did. But you know what? The way they treated these veterans. Why would anyone want to come on a minimum veteran contract? I mean, they really have a lot of roster reshaping to do right now, and I don't know how. I really don't know how close they are to winning a championship. I don't think they're that close at all.
Well, they're tied to a lot of money because Kyrie's going to be staying here. You've got Durant.
Yes, well, he's going to opt out. He's going to opt out of the final year of his deal, and then they're going to come together on a big 5-year extension, and then that ties Kevin and KD together for the long haul, which is good because it allows you a longer window for a championship. But they're far away at this point. I mean, you look at some of these teams that are left. You look at Boston. You look at what Miami has. You look at what Milwaukee has. Now, Milwaukee's in an interesting spot, and we'll get to that in a minute when we talk about some of the series. And you look at what Phoenix has. You look at
even Memphis.
Young team like Memphis. Now, I'm very interested to see how they go up against a veteran-laden team like Golden State. But you look at what these teams have, and you see what the Nets are missing. And I think that there's a lot of work to be done. And this is a big offseason for Sean Marks. It really is.
Oh, it's going to be a big offseason. I was listening to the TNT guys talk about that. If I'm a veteran player, I was expecting to go into a win now situation and get minutes. And guys like Griffin and Aldridge that didn't play weren't parts of the rotation. It was
the coaching was straight up deplorable, and I just don't understand. The only reason why Steve Nash is coming back is because Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving want him back.
Well, that's what it comes down
And
to.
that is, you know what? And that's the biggest single problem with this Nets team. Because especially if you listen to Kyrie Irving's comments in the post game after, you know what? The days are a blur. I don't remember when Game 4 was.
Well, we're gonna move on to that because I want to
but after the game
series real quick and before we get out of here.
But after the game, Kyrie Irving said, "We're gonna manage this team. Like it's up to KD and Kyrie. No, that's the general manager's job. Just shut up and let him bring in the players. Stop trying to control the entire roster." And I'm tired of that.
But
I really am.
He is now, though, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you look at. I mean, people are calling for Rob Pelinka's head in LA when I don't think he's done a great job. Let me put that on the record. But LeBron James put that roster together.
Right.
Let's stop kidding ourselves.
He wanted Westbrook. He wanted
Irving
Anthony.
are the ones putting this roster together, and they have to do a better job because they're nowhere close to a championship.
They don't have the depth. They've got their work cut out for them. There's going to be now. It's going to be you're going to have to play the regular season because it can't be no more of this. Well, we just got to wait and get to the postseason. No, the pressure is going to be on those guys. If it ain't on it now, it's going to certainly be on come to October. And obviously, we'll see what they do here in the offseason. But very quickly before we get to closing thoughts and some of these series, I was at the Brute Force had mentioned. I mean, give me your thoughts on what we can expect real quick, Justin, before we get out of here. I got the Heat and the 76ers, very interesting. I was with the news about Joel Embiid. Celtics and Bucks, very intriguing series. And then you've got the Grizzlies and Warriors. And, oh, by the way, you've got the Suns and Mavericks. I mean, give me a quick predictions on these series very quickly before we move on tonight.
So the Joel Embiid injury changes everything. He's got a mild concussion and an orbital fracture in his eye. So he's listed as out. So who knows when we're going to see him again. So that changes everything. I don't think James Harden could be the lead player on this team, and I just don't think they're suited for that. And that's going to put them in a world of trouble against a very, very well coached team. How many times have we complimented Eric Spoelstra on this show
we
for
spent
how great
a lot
of
of time last week on that.
And you know what? And everything they got. And we'll see what's up with Kyle Lowry. We'll see when he's expected back. I think Jimmy Butler might have even missed the last game too, but I don't think long-term that's any form of a concern for the Heat. But you look at the way they're coached. I mean, Bam Adebayo is also a terrific player. Then you got guys like Tyler Hero, Max Strus, and Duncan Robinson, and they're just such a well put together team. So at this point, I have to like Miami. As for Boston, Milwaukee, I can't see Milwaukee coming out of this series without Chris Middleton. And I think that Chris Middleton injury really could be the nail in the coffin on a repeat championship for the Milwaukee Bucks. You know what? And after seeing firsthand for 4 games the suffocating defense that Ime Udoka has his team playing.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to face Boston after what I
don't know how to pick against. I don't know how to pick against Boston at this point.
The Nets shot 50% in the 4 games and still didn't win one of them. What does that tell you about Boston? I would not want any part of them right now.
Don't. You know what? I hate to say it because I hate the Celtics. I can't stand them. They're disgusting human beings. They got a stupid leprechaun logo. I want to take a Celtics t-shirt and just vomit all over it. With that being said, I don't know that anybody's beating them out of the Eastern Conference. I legit might throw up, but they might go to the NBA Finals.
Time, you know what? That roster, they're constructed for the postseason. You know what?
They certainly are. They certainly are. And you know what? Their veterans are giving them plenty.
And didn't they have the best record in the league in the second half of the season? They had like a crazy run, if I'm not mistaken.
Remember, they were 18-21 at one point, and that's when they really turned things around in January. Yep. And that's where you got to give a lot of credit to Ime Udoka. And in the Western Conference, I didn't see much of Game 6 against the Pelicans, but I'm curious to see how Booker plays with this hamstring. Because we saw last year what happened when James Harden came back from a hamstring a little too quickly.
Yep.
And I worry that become an issue now that you're playing a better team, and you're gonna play Dallas here in the second round. And you know what? They're gonna have their hands full with Luka Doncic, but you know what? Phoenix is such the better team, and I mean you can't say enough about the 14 for 14 performance from Chris Paul. I mean he was I mean, he was on a Hall of Fame level last night, and I think Phoenix can't be
Like
dismissed.
Brad Rice said, the brute force. This is Chris Paul's spotlight. This is all
It
on him, and
certainly
he
is.
proved that he got his team out of a situation where it could have been dicey. Got to give him credit.
Yep, and
Come from behind win.
Yep, and then now in this final spot with Golden State and Memphis, this is a real big learning spot for Taylor Jenkins and his young squad. I mean, John Morant and Desmond Bain, and how do these guys go up against a team with a championship pedigree that is the Golden State Warriors? I mean, Steph Curry looks like Steph Curry, and he's nailing every three. Klay Thompson has finally got his legs underneath him, and now he's knocking every three in sight. Jordan Poole has turned into this incredible player, and now all of a sudden they got this massive big three. Draymond Green is doing the Draymond Green thing.
I think Draymond Green's been the X factor. Yep.
Again, I'm fully confident in sticking to this prediction. I said before the playoffs started, the Golden State Warriors are winning the championship, and I'm sticking to it. Now could they run into Boston in the finals? Very well could. And could that be a difficult task? Absolutely. But Golden State, I mean, we'll see if they face Phoenix, what that series looks like. But my God, Golden State's playing as well as anybody right now. And I'm sorry, I feel bad for Memphis because they're such a young and up-and-coming team, and they're going to have a lot of chances at this postseason run. But no, John, I don't have any love for Boston. I can't stand them.
Well,
Please.
he noticed that you mentioned the Celtics logo, so
you know what? I wish I could step on that logo like Kyrie did last year. But you know what? And I can't pick the Bucks without Chris Middleton. Now, if Chris Middleton comes back during the series, whole different ball game. Can they win? Absolutely. But I don't know that they're going.
I got to be honest with you, Justin. Looking at Boston, the way they played against the Nets, the depth they have, the size they have right now. I mean, with their players, with Williams and Horford and Tatum and Brown, everybody that they have. I mean, Smart. I mean, they're a very, very good ball club. They're constructed.
I'll give you this. Could they fall behind early because of the rust for not playing for so long?
I mean, listen, and that's something we're going to see with Golden State. Does Golden State have a little bit of a rust? Because these other series, listen, the 76ers played up to yesterday. Phoenix just plays up to yesterday. Obviously, Golden State might have a little bit of rust. I mean, Milwaukee.
They don't exactly have the second round schedule yet.
I think Sundays, some of these games start, I'm pretty sure. NBA schedule. We're going to look it up here real quick before we move on here. From
1 p.m., Bucks Celtics Sunday, game 1. And then you got 76ers Heat, Mavericks Suns starting on Monday. And then
we got 76ers Heat game 1 Monday 7:30, Mavericks Suns 10 p.m. When does
the Warriors? The Warriors are going to play the Grizzlies, and I think that series just ended tonight. The Grizzlies did. So
they'll probably set that. Yeah, they'll probably set that either for
Wednesday, probably.
Yeah, probably Tuesday,
Wednesday. That's not set yet.
All right, so those are some things that we're looking forward to here. Obviously, we ran the gauntlet here tonight on Sportswire Radio. We covered NBA playoffs. We got NHL playoffs, NFL draft, Trevor Bauer, baseball. We literally pulled a Baskin-Robbins. Oh, in my closing thoughts, I'm going to cover a Lyndhurst Golden Bears. So we're going to have a lot of things to talk about here, but I want to get to closing thoughts here as we got a few more minutes here before we say goodbye and let everybody go and enjoy their weekend and such. And Billy, I want to give you the floor, my friend. Billy, always good to have you, my friend. Always love your opinions and everything you do for us here in Sportswire Radio. So I want to give you the floor, my friend. I want to give you some closing thoughts. Anything else you want to plug and share? And I can't thank you enough. And fire away, my friend.
Thank you, Tom. You can catch me on Twitter at WMCINE. Going to be tweeting a lot about the Rangers over the next month or so, probably, maybe longer if they get a deep run.
Absolutely.
I actually want to close with 2 Mets thoughts tonight.
Sure.
Predictions, one not so bold and one a little bolder, I think. So not so bold prediction, in a week's time, Robinson Cano will no longer be a Met.
That's been a topic of talk radio through the last, week.
I don't think there's anyone else that they can really release to clear that roster spot when the roster shrink from 20 to 26. My other prediction is that I do not think James McCann is going to be a starting catcher come September 1st.
I hope he shouldn't be. I hope not.
I think Francisco Alvarez is going to come and take that job over the summer.
Well, if you ask Ernest Dove, Ernest Dove would definitely tell you Francisco Alvarez. There's a plan for him. There's definitely a plan for him.
Is he still at Binghamton?
Yeah, but probably not for much
longer. He's gonna be
player.
If he's at Binghamton, he's gonna find himself at Syracuse real fast.
Yeah,
I was gonna say
he's hitting down there.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Or up there, to be honest.
I hope so with James McCann because James McCann is like what a bust. I want to go negatives on the Mets, but what a bust.
You know what? You could live with him because of the way the lineup is constructed, but
he's a bust. I gotta be honest.
You gotta do better at some point.
What a bust.
At this point, I play Nito over him to get better defense, Hey,
you know what? At least I know what I'm getting with McCann. I spent all this money, and the guy is like, he's like, even Shioka, like the same thing practically at the plate. And so it's, that's a bummer. But good stuff there, Bill. Anything else you want to add here? Anything Ranger related? Closing thought on two before we go
I'll give a serious prediction. I think the Rangers win in 6 over the Penguins.
I hope so. I hate the Pittsburgh Penguins. As an Islanders fan,
everyone does really.
I really hate the Penguins. I really hate the Penguins. So, and Chris Kreider, won a season for the ages.
Yeah.
We're talking about what was it? Yager, Rattel, and Adam Graves, 50-goal scorers in the franchise's history, and he joins them. I'm pretty sure I'm correct in that.
Yeah, no, you are. Yager, Rattel, and
Graves.
Yeah,
one of the most oddest 50-goal scorers in maybe like hockey history.
They have 2 of them though, because Adam Graves wasn't a big goal scorer in that one season.
52 goals in '94, and the rest of his career, he was like kind of like an Anders Lee, just a guy behind the net.
He got to the 30s a few times, but he mostly hung in like the high teens.
Yeah, he wasn't really like like you think about him in 50-goal scorers. He's really not one of those names that comes to mind. And Kreider joins them. Definitely a very interesting history. You would think with the Rangers, right? All the players they've had in history that they would have had a lot more 50-goal seasons.
But, you're surprised that like Messier never got there, or
I would have thought Mike Gartner would have got to 50. I would have thought he was big,
did, just not with the Rangers.
That's my point. I would have thought he would have got there. I would have thought even a guy like Peter Nedved or a Kovalov would have got there. John Orjardink, I know.
Kovalov also might have gotten there with the Penguins and not the Rangers.
Bernie Nichols was a Ranger. I would have thought Bernie Nichols probably got to 50 somewhere else. The Rangers have had some explosive players. Gilbert, I would have thought, obviously, I would have thought Gilbert would have hit 50, and I was surprised. He might have came close, I would think. So I was surprised about that. I know Rick Nash hit 40 one year, like he had that 1 year with like 41-ish. But not too many Ranger history. So that's a neat little stat there. So congratulations to him. We'll certainly talk some Rangers, I'm sure, next week with you on the stream. So good stuff. And WMCINE on Twitter for all the great stuff that Billy did. I try to keep up with everybody's tweets. I try to tweet what I can. I try. So I try to support my own here on Sportswire. So good stuff, Billy. Thank you for joining us. And Chris, I want to give you the floor, my friend, and congratulations on the space on Twitter with the Liftoff Jets show. Very good idea. Saw that people were tuning into that. I caught a few minutes of that. So good work on that. And want to give you the floor, some closing thoughts, what we can expect coming forward with the shows, the Talking Rivals, the Liftoff Jets. Anything else you want to share? I can't thank you enough. And the floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, guys. We had another great show tonight. I'm looking forward to Talking Rivals probably on Monday. We should have a special guest. We'll be bringing in a Yankee reporter on this week.
Oh, nice.
We're working on some things in the next couple of weeks. So hopefully last week we had the guy from the Red Sox.
That was a good one. I listened to that numerous times. Very informative.
Yeah, he was really good. So
I liked him.
I'm looking forward to that. Finally some positive thoughts. Now the Red Sox have all the negative because they haven't been playing well. So it's kind
of
they
haven't. No, they haven't.
Yeah. So we'll be looking forward to that on Monday. And then, of course, probably Wednesday, Sharman and I will be discussing who the Jets ended up drafting. Got a few more picks to go. So all good stuff, man. I'm so happy with the Jets draft this so far. All good picks. Love them all. I would like to get an offensive tackle at some point, but we'll see. Otherwise, Otherwise, it's been an A, man, A plus for us, and we don't really say that.
Yeah, I was
often or
gonna say. I think we spoke about what the 2000 draft, the 06. It's really ain't too
Yeah.
many years I could think of why the Jets had like a super duper good draft. So certainly things are hopeful, and CP7NY. Everybody can follow Chris on social media, there, Instagram and Twitter, and the Liftoff Jets at Liftoff Jets on Twitter. Also Talking Rivals at Talking Rivals on Twitter. YouTube at Talking Rivals, TalkingRivals.com. You can catch the boys also on Spotify, Anchor. I think we're on iTunes also. YouTube
Yep.
as well, Northeast Streaming Sports Channel, and Roku. I know that obviously Mac McGrath and Linda obviously play it as well from their station. So all great stuff. The phenomenal work that you and Patrick have obviously been doing. Charmin as well. Love catching Charmin stuff on Facebook. I always see Charmin pop up on my Facebook timeline. So Charmin, I love Charmin. So Charmin's one of our favorites, and great work, and congratulations on that. And Justin, I want to give you the floor, my friend. Certainly closing thoughts here. Anything you want to share, plug, anything else baseball banter, and I can't thank you enough. And the floor is yours, my friend, and fire away.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Yeah, I'm coordinating with John what time we're going to record tomorrow. Instead of my normal Wednesday, Sunday this week, I'm doing one tomorrow to recap the first month of the season. As now it's past midnight, it's April 30th, the last day of the month. And, kind of assess the Mets and Yankees so far, assess the rest of the league as well. But, it's been a good first month for both teams, obviously. So, there should be a lot of happy thoughts on that. Obviously, we'll discuss some of the things like the Trevor Bauer suspension and, and some of the disgusting details of that situation. But, can't hide from the elephant in the room. So, have to, as much as despicable as it is, you can't get away from it. But you can follow the Baseball Banter Twitter page at bballbantersm. Trying to be more active on it, but I'm obviously very active on my personal Twitter at jgianelli12. So you can follow me there too with plenty of content. Obviously, the podcast goes up on the station right here. If you can't catch it on the station for some reason, Apple Podcasts has it, Anchor, Spotify. You can find it in a number of different places as well. So give it a check. Check it out.
All phenomenal stuff. Love hearing the Baseball Banter Show. In fact, we were playing back-to-back shows here throughout the week on Sportswire Radio. Love the work you do. Love when John joins us as well. Really, really excited. We'll play that show, I'm sure, sometime tomorrow night. We have a closing thought from the Brute Force. He says, "Good night, guys. Missed being on the show tonight. I'll be back next week. Don't worry, John Gonzalez." And Brute Force, I mean, when are we catching up? I mean, I think now, the month of May, I'm actually free almost the entire month. So you are going to have to find a way to make a day for we can all meet up on Long Island for the All-American Burger so I can finally
Saturday in May, finally. Maybe we'll get better weather because this weather has been hot.
Dude, I'm not, sitting outside and, maybe one more week. Hopefully we get some warmer weather here. But
hopefully a couple of weeks we'll actually hit some 70-degree days.
Nice.
I'm tired of wearing like gloves and a sweater at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm waiting.
I don't blame you.
I want the t-shirt and shorts, and I'm waiting for that. But obviously, I'm looking forward to all that. And I promised it here before we get out of here. I want to give a shout out to the Lyndhurst baseball team. And first of all, I want everybody to follow the Lyndhurst baseball team on Twitter at baseball_LHS22. And the boys had quite a week, and certainly last game here on Wednesday, 22-5. I mean, Justin, they certainly didn't miss you here in the lineup when you were playing there because obviously the boys just it was nonstop, 14 runs in the fifth inning against Harrison, and they were led by some firepower, almost the entire lineup. But I'm looking at guys right now like John Lembo, 4 runs scored, 2 RBIs, and Greg Fragnapani, 3 RBIs on a 3-run double. And you had also guys like Vincent Orteri, 3 for 4, an RBI, and also had 3 hits and 2 runs scored. And I'm looking at also, I mean, just up and down the lineup. I mean, Michael Rizzo, get this, Justin, 7 RBIs, 3 for 3. With a single and 2 triples and a walk. I mean, Marvel just didn't even face him at this point. I mean, certainly he probably was the player of the game, certainly for sure. John Lember with the 4 runs scored, and Vincent Orteri, again, 2 for 4 with 3 runs scored, 3 RBIs, a double. I mean, and they were also powered by Jack Nowinski, who again went 4 innings and gave up just 4 runs, 3 of them earned, 6 strikeouts. I mean, just a dominant performance here for our boys.
And get this, the Rizzo family of Lyndhurst is related to Yankee first baseman Anthony Rizzo.
Well, that's what you learn here on Sportswire Radio. I mean, although I'm probably more of a Michael Rizzo fan than an Anthony Rizzo fan because we love our Golden Bears here.
Yeah, and you know what? But
Radio.
it's funny. 2022 seems like a common theme anytime Lyndhurst would face off against Harrison. Offense has always been, the lineup has always been strong for Lyndhurst. I mean, baseball is certainly one of the golden programs. No pun intended with the name Golden Bears, but it's certainly one of the golden programs. Football over the recent years has been really good too, but baseball has always been a sport of success in Lyndhurst. And you know what? The boys are having a solid season again, and to get a nice big win over Harrison, those are always fun. But and keep up the good work.
Well, you were a part of it. That's why they were successful, because you were an alum there. You were one of those reasons why that obviously the team was doing as well as it was. So obviously, listen, we got to give credit where it's due. And also want to recap here very quickly Monday's game, because Monday we got a huge win, 7-1 against New Milford, and we certainly showed that why we are where we are. And of course, some of our boys here who continued some of the success again. Michael Rizzo, 2 RBIs and was 1 for 3, got that big hit for us. And Anthony Pizzuti knocks in 2. He was 1 for 3. And Vincent Orteri again has 2 hits and 3 at-bats, and he had 2 singles. And also John Lembo again at the top of the line. John Lembo at the top of the lineup really is the guy that anchors it for our boys. 1 for 3, a run scored, a single. And also, again, we were powered by, Michael Rizzo pitching. He pitches, he hits. I mean, 7-inning complete game victory. Listen, we could have used him for the Mets and Yankees. I mean, gives up 1 run, strikes out 5. I mean, only 83 pitches. So he was clearly effective there. So obviously, Michael Rizzo was the player of the game. And of course, the reason we won because our boys 6-run 3rd inning. So what we know that Coach Orteri is doing for us here is he's getting these high-powered innings for us. So obviously, here, that's what's carrying for us. We're getting red hot. And
offense is a specialty.
We're getting hot right now at the right time. So looking at this team, where we are, we think about where we are. Win 4 of our last 5 games right now. We're 8-6, but we're 6-1 in the NJIC. So clearly, looking at this team right now for the PowerPoints, we've got some huge games coming up here. We're back in action Tuesday against Butler. We're back the next day, 4:15 p.m. against Dwight Englewood. We're at Ridgefield at 4 o'clock. So we've got some road games coming up, but I got a feeling our boys are going to get the job done. And of course, if you like what you hear from the Lyndhurst baseball team, also give them a like on Instagram as well and follow them at Lyndhurst Baseball. Also want to thank Coach Orteri for sharing our clips and our footage, and really means a lot for us. We want you to follow Coach Orteri for all the great things that he is doing at PA_22_. So make sure you follow him. He also does some great work with the Complete Performance Baseball Academy out there at Oakland, New Jersey. So those are some great things. Huge shout-outs to our beloved Lyndhurst baseball team and the entire team, Michael Rizzo and Vincent Orteri and everybody there that's a part of it, John Lembo. So a lot of great players there, Jack Nowinski, and of course also our St. Joseph's, Long Island, New York men's tennis team gets another huge win earlier in the week. You can follow them at SJCWMTNE. So that's about it for us here, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think I have much more left in me. So if you were on sport, I did a 2-hour show on wrestling in England, then we did this. So that's how it goes. But if you are on Sportswire Radio, you're getting the sit-down marks wearing their shirt. They'll be on here in a few minutes. If you're also on Sportswire Radio, sportnarium.com/play, I'll be back live tomorrow night, 10 o'clock Eastern time. I'll be covering for the work in progress here. A work in progress will be covering Monday Night Raw. So thank you to our dear friend, Mr. Piles, for that. And if also you're live with us on all of our other platforms, we'll be back. Tobacco Road Sports Radio will be back, I think, after North Carolina high school baseball. So I don't know when that could be. That could be whenever the game ends. So we'll be on there. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Linda and Mac McGrath, for your support, your friendship. Thank you to John Gonzalez, the Sports Authorities Group, Larry Frank, Frankly Speaking Sports. Thank you on if you're watching us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, whatever else we're on out there. So I am the host of the Sports Report, the station manager here of Sportswire Radio. With me here is Justin Gino at the Baseball Banter Show, Chris Pizzea, Liftoff Jets Talking Rivals Show, Billy McInerney, formerly of Elite Sports. And thank you, everyone. Good night. enjoy your weekend, and we'll be back tomorrow night on sportnarium.com/play. We'll be back throughout the week. And for our boys here, Friday night, 9:30 next week, be there or be square. I am the host of the Sports Report, the station manager here of Sportswire Radio, the Reverend Tom Bryce. Good night.